I have today, tomorrow. I wouldn't miss hosting a radio show tomorrow for, as my grandma would say, all the tea in China. And then I get to do Saturday morning as well. 710 KNUS Weather Center weather. It is going to be hot. 97 the high, 102 on Friday, 100 degrees on Saturday, 103 degrees on Sunday. Well, by now, I think everybody knows that the president tonight, or actually this afternoon, our time, 3:30, will give his first press conference, his debate disaster against Donald Trump, trying to put that in the rear view mirror in this pressure cooker that could seal the fate, really, of his reelection bid. Kelly Michaels, Peter Boyles, and the talented Blake Olson together. But the eyes of the world are going to be on 81-year-old Joe Biden at a NATO summit, who's again, growing calls for calmness in the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party has crumbled. It is the beginning of the end. I have a Winston Churchill speech for that. Blake, good morning to you.
Hey.
And Kelly, man, Kelly's with us.
Good morning. Yeah.
So, wow, huh?
Thank goodness for Kelly. Because I don't know, when it gets to Thursday, man, it is difficult. But I heard Kelly's voice. All right, here we go.
The calming effect. It's the calming effect.
Yeah, this is going to be wild today. Hey, before I move on to the serious stuff, you had me listening to my favorite James Brown song all night and yesterday, by the way.
What did you come up with?
So I had it. Here it is. Remember this?
Sure. Get on up.
Get up off of that thing.
Yeah.
That got me going. In fact, I need to clear this real quick so I can get this audio, because that sounded horrible.
It did. We should ask Kelly to play it.
Capitalists used to say that all the time. And yeah, but get up off of that thing. This one. To you.
I had Living in America.
Yeah, no, that's a great one also. There's about 20. I looked in and I was like, wow. There's 20 to 30 I like. There's about 100 that are really good.
Yeah.
You know?
we actually, what happened yesterday, we got into talking about James Brown, about JB, and your favorite actually started with the Isley Brothers, and we worked into James Brown. But
here's my favorite Isleys.
Ow. See, the three of us are, I'm of course the senior, but when you see a guy, like, this is how I grew up, and you see, like, 15, 16-year-old, and he's walking in or hitchhiking to some girl's house, and he's got Johnny Mathis albums under his arm.
I wonder what he's trying to do.
He's headed for short strokes. I mean,
that's right.
But if he had anything like that,
man, Johnny Mathis, man, that'll do the job.
And then later in life, it becomes Al Green. Anytime you got Al Green,
no doubt, right?
But,
absolutely. And then after that, it was Luther Vandross.
Yeah, but any of those songs or any of those LPs. Doubt. But if you saw a guy, we always have a running gag. Mm-hmm. And you saw a guy hitchhiking.
That's funny.
Or walking. And he had the LPs under his arm, right?
Yeah.
And he's got Johnny Mathis.
Yeah.
Oh, where are you going and what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly.
So anyhow,
today's going to be crazy, though. It's at 3:30 Denver time. And to me, this is the fork in the road, isn't it?
It's absolutely.
This is it. If he shows up.
No, the eyes of the world.
Yeah.
And this is his, and because yesterday we played a Churchill speech, and why I drift into these things, I don't know, but
because you're smart.
Well, and or I have nothing else to do. So Kelly Michaels, who can find anything. So there's this wonderful moment with Churchill, and it looks like the Battle of the Blitz is over, that they have turned. And they're not aware of it, but the Goering's bombers aren't coming as much, or if all anymore. The RAF has turned them back. So Churchill goes into Commons. Now, remember, he's into Parliament. Remember, he's a drinker.
Mhm.
He drinks brandy in the morning, drinks champagne in the morning.
Right.
No, seriously, had a
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
series of heart attacks during the war. I mean, it's just like this remarkable. But so I'm thinking, is this a apt Joe Biden moment? Now, this is Winston Churchill. Yesterday, we played Some Chicken, Some Neck. This is Churchill. Kel, you ready, boss? Get full value. I think it's 1941. He gives this speech. Isn't that great?
That is
So
awesome.
I applied that to Joe Biden.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
Tonight is the end of the beginning.
Yes, it is. There's no doubt, man.
It isn't the end. I mean, it's the end of the beginning. Kelly, do you mind hitting that again? Let it settle in, because
I love it.
Yeah, I hear it through one more time. He's resetting. I apologize. It is Winston Churchill. I think it is 1941.
Oh, it's really profound. It is.
And so many things that he said. It. And they.
Wow, 1940.
Yeah, 1940, 41. It's after they've turned the corner, the Blitz.
Yeah.
And America's not in the war yet. I mean, Pearl Harbor hasn't happened, but he carried that country on his voice through the worst of the worst. I mean, there's a lot of problems with Winston Churchill, but
no doubt,
as there is with all of us, but he literally picked that country up and carried it through it, as he said. But and by the way, I think the picture got sent to you. Did you see?
Oh, I did see that. That was awesome. What a great photo.
Yeah,
that is so cool. And the bear made more money.
The bear made more money. There's a picture, and I can't put it up on the internet because
great.
There is one person. There are four of us in that picture, and two people are now gone. Okay. And Haggerty's gone, and then the other fellow next to me is gone. But the other guy on the end is a member of a young man's Christian motorcycle organization out of Arizona.
Really?
and everybody's kind of leaning on a bar in Sturgis.
Yeah, that is so cool. What a great photo.
And that's Haggerty.
That is so cool.
I spent time riding with him and hanging out with him, and he said,
"I want to see more. You got to bring a photo in. Next time you're in for a week, you need to bring 10 photos in a day."
That the GD Bear, he told me
just to keep me entertained.
The GD Bear made more than me.
That is awesome, man.
It's true.
Yeah,
I said to him, I said,
no doubt.
Dan Haggerty played Grizzly Adams, and he also was involved in the motion picture Easy Rider, and that's how we all got there. But anyhow, so we're talking about the bear, and he said that GD Bear made more money than I did. All right,
that's awesome.
Love it. He was a wild card. He was one of a kind. So here it is. It is time for the Olson Report. Peter Boyles, 710 KNUS Denver's talk station. Kelly Michaels. Everybody's on the job this morning. Yep. This is it.
Here we go.
This is it. And tonight, Thursday night, actually in the afternoon, 3:30 our time.
Yeah.
And this is his first press conference in a while. And certainly since that debate disaster against Donald Trump.
Sure.
And, political theorists and historians call these pressure cooker moments. Well, what's your best guess?
Oh, I think it is going to be so ugly. I mean, if you have the left, you have the people who have been carrying the water for him for 4 years. And then with Obama, 8. So when he was vice president, so you're talking about 12, 13 years that they've been with him. And now it's just this is going to be so ugly. I mean, it's going to be entertaining as hell. But there's no way he survives. There's no way.
I said after the debate, I said, if it was a fight, they would have stopped it.
Yes.
I mean, that's so if this guy goes out there, and I think that we can firmly say that in that Stephanopoulos interview that they stopped it short. I really do believe that. And now George Clooney calls for Did you see how much
Yeah.
weight? How much weight do you think that carries?
Oh, I think that's Obama. I think that's
Backdoored him.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
no doubt.
I
I think that's the whole Obama regime speaking through Clooney.
Great minds thinking
Right.
alike. I thought that too. I thought,
Right. It has to be all about the donors and the money. And,
Sure
I
it is.
mean, ultimately, so he was speaking, and then, Axelrod,
Yeah.
that is when you hear him speak, that's
Yeah.
Obama. So,
Do you think
this is fascinating today.
It truly is.
I hope he shows up.
Well, there's that moment where you think that Joe Biden turns around and says, "Et tu, Brute?" The shanks are coming in him left and right,
That's right.
And he looks around and there's George Clooney. "Et tu, Brute?"
Right.
He's got that puzzled look on his face. And Axelrod.
man.
Axelrod's half a weasel anyhow. So
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah,
That guy, man, the things that he's able
Oh,
to say,
they're the best.
and they keep a straight face. No, it's a lot like your friend Joel Gilbert talks about red diaper babies.
Oh, yeah. No, their red
Those-
diaper babies are
Yeah.
real.
Yeah,
Sure.
there's no doubt. So here we go.
Yeah. All right,
All
buddy.
All right, man.
It is time for the
great.
Olson Report. Ready, sir? Here we go.
Thank you, sir. Great talking to you, Pete. Once again on Thursday. Can't believe it's already been 4 days, 61 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the upper 90s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
Isn't he supposed to be having a press conference tomorrow?
That's right. That's when he's making his announcement.
It's the most depressing headline of the week.
President Biden hosting his first press conference since last month's debate, as Peter and I were just talking about. Former President Trump.
With the COVID, with
That's Biden.
dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if
Okay, so it's the first time he's taking questions solo since November of last year. If he doesn't back out, it'll start at 3:30 Denver time.
asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of this.
And Axios reporting that Chucky Schumer is open to dumping Biden now. Who knows about him? George Clooney took out an op-ed by way of Obama, I'm sure, saying that he loves Joe, but we need a new nominee. And no surprise, Van Jones says that Democrats will run Kamala Harris one way or another.
What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been.
And DNC Chair Jamie Harrison says, get behind Joe.
We were talking a few months ago about how amazing Joe Biden's speech, one of the best speeches we've ever seen in the State of Union. And because of a 90-minute debate, we throw all of that away? Come on, folks. Focus on what is important.
So Biden scheduled to meet with Ukrainian President Zelensky today as the NATO summit wraps up in D.C. This comes after the 75-year-old alliance approved a joint communique on Wednesday affirming that Ukraine is an irreversible path to NATO membership. Also at the summit last night, the leader from Italy comes out. She's a little shorter. And after Biden greets her and kisses her on both cheeks, which is fine, he continues to lean forward and hanging over her. And she's in a really uncomfortable spot. She's leaning back. I don't know what he said to her or what he was doing, but it was really uncomfortable. Not a good look as he gets ready for this press conference coming up today, allegedly, or we're expecting at 3:30. A daycare in Aurora is under fire following allegations that the staff there threatened and abused children. Teachers at Denver International Schoolhouse are accused of threatening to harm and humiliate the children, taping their mouths shut, hitting them with plastic pointers, and leaving them unsupervised. The claims prompted the Colorado Department of Early Childhood to investigate, which led to the daycare's license being put on probation. Several teachers have been fired since then. Alec Baldwin's involuntary manslaughter trial in New Mexico continues today, and ammo vending machines popping up across the country. Texas-based American Rounds has already installed at least one of theirs in their home state. Add to that, several in Oklahoma and Alabama, Florida, and Colorado could also see them installed in the coming weeks. In a congressional hearing on big tech censorship, Ben Shapiro just owns Eric Swalwell. He's the dude who slept with the Chinese spy and had relations with her. He tries to rope Shapiro in on gay marriage and a lot of stuff in Project 25 with that basically 99% of Republicans don't support or know anything about. But the Dems just trying to use it, and Shapiro just embarrasses him.
I'm just asking, is it a sin to be gay?
Is it a sin to be gay? I mean, how long do we have here? 2 minutes? I mean, if the basic idea is that sexual orientation is up for government regulation, I'm not in favor of the government regulating the private consenting sexual activity of adults. That is a different thing, once again, from whether the government ought to engage in actual benefits for particular sexual arrangements that adults make.
But again, just you to me, is it a sin or not?
From a religious Jewish perspective, orientation is not a sin, but activity is. That's also the same perspective of most major religions, so far as I'm aware.
Get that big stuff out of here! Gentleman's time has expired, and I remind him of the first rule of holes. When you're in one, stop digging.
News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954. Online at lairfireplacepatio.com. Rocks Getaway Day today in Cincinnati. First pitch, 11:10. Then you can watch the press conference right after the baseball game. They beat the Reds last night, 6-5. You know, it sounds like a good summer day under the shade tree with the lemonade. You got baseball and the press conference.
And whatever this is.
Yeah, and whatever. You will remember this the rest of your life.
The questions you have, how set up is this? I mean,
I don't know, man. I mean, this supposedly, I mean, it's the real deal. I mean, that's what they say, you know, an actual press conference. I don't believe that. You talked about it yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, how they feed these questions and whatever.
We know that Jack Kennedy had it set up.
Yeah.
That his press secretary they called it salting. He knew the reporters who loved Jack. He would give them the questions in advance. And so when Kennedy was the master at press conferences, and he was good. But he always had the retort that was either funny or really intelligent or very insightful. And now we know that was all prearranged. It was a Kennedy press conference. But so the walls closed in when Clooney, and I loved what you said and what Kelly and I were talking about, Clooney calls on Biden not to stand. He said, we can't do it. And Nancy Pelosi twists the knife a little bit.
Right.
It's like, boy, you talk about Lady Macbeth. Wow.
And her and Schumer. I mean, you can't.
Even Chucky. Chucky's going, well.
Two sides. One day and then the next. Whatever, wherever the money's flowing. And Clooney gives you the clue.
Let me lick my finger and stick it out the window and see which way the wind is blowing.
And that's perfect for Biden.
Yeah.
Sure. That's who he is.
But can they get him up for this? Can they get him up for this?
I'll be shocked. I will. I'll be like, wow. I know nothing. If he survives this, if it's an actual press conference, I mean, can you imagine if it's a Trump-like press conference, the questions he takes they're on the fly?
They're playing organized grab ass when Trump gets up there. But again, maybe it's going to be another cold. Maybe the guy's going to get a cold again. You know.
No, there's a possibility. All right, it makes for good radio. I'll give it back to you.
I would pay to work. And tomorrow, you know, they give me a couple bucks to come in. I would pay them to work tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right. It's gonna be great. And usually Friday has no news. Tomorrow, oh yeah, this is gonna go for another 4 or 5 days.
Me and you and Kel, and then I got Saturday morning when the fallout.
What am I saying? Your Saturday show is gonna be awesome.
And the hits just keep on coming.
They keep on
Here we go. All right,
All
my
right,
boy. Talk to you in a minute.
56, 56 in Broomfield, 58 in Englewood, 61 in Denver. Pete continues in for Jeff and Billy. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast. Heat advisories are in effect as we head into tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday. Hot, sunny, mid-90s today, 60s tonight. Hot, with upper 90s to near 100 for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Nothing more than isolated thunderstorms. Not as hot, with a better chance of thunderstorms by Tuesday. Weather sponsored by Branch Planning. Some income annuities are paying 25 to 45% more than last year. Get a free retirement review by calling Branch Planning today at 720-651-9800. Find out more at branchplanning.com. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Morning, everybody, on a Thursday, 11th morning of July, 2024, Showdown Day. This is the afternoon where Joe Biden will give his catch-as-catch-can first press conference. Weather 97 to high, 102 Friday, 100 degrees on Saturday. Here we go. Lines are open. This is, I think, Ernadette. Good morning. You're on the show. Thanks for calling.
Hi, Peter. A little bit change of subject here. Sorry. I just wanted to draw your attention to a program that's on tonight on Channel 6 called The Holly. There's a book, and I think you had the author on the show.
Indeed.
Yeah, a shooting opens a window into politics and gang war. It starts at 8 o'clock, and then at 9:30, it's a half-hour show called After the Holly. So just wanted to draw your attention to that.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. All right.
Okay.
All right. 303-696-1971. Here we go. What do you think is going to happen tonight? And as a, kind of a amateur historian, the other day we walked into, and things go off in your head and go, oh, man, play that. And the great Winston Churchill, who was probably the orator of our time. I mean, you can't get around Churchill. We lived through some great speakers. Jack Kennedy was a great speaker. Reagan was a great speaker. Eisenhower wasn't. I'm not so sure Trump's a good speaker. Joe Biden, please. Neither one of the Bushes were very good. But Winston Churchill, I think, is a standalone voice. And given the moments that he spoke in during the Blitz and what was taking place when they thought, and the operation was called Sea Lion, and they really did think the Germans were going to come ashore. And he gave those incredible speeches, and never have so many, have so many owed so, to so few. And that, of course, was those 16, 17-year-old fighter pilots in the RAF. But then why I think about this stuff is I don't know. I think it's either the curse of the gift. But he has a speech called The End of the Beginning. And Kelly, who can find anything on the internet, found it. And so Joe Biden tonight will give his first press conference post-debate, or even the first open press conference that I can think of in forever. And Donald Trump gave press conferences all the time. He liked them. He'd go to war with people. He couldn't stay away. He's like, my father would say about us growing up, there'd be two dogs fighting. And he said, do you ever see a third dog never comes and just sits down and watches? Third dog jumps in. It's just inevitably And, and think it through, think about growing up and, dogs get in fights. So there's two dogs and they're going at it. And a third dog comes along. Does the third dog just sort of sit down and watch? Hell no. Third dog just jumps right. And it doesn't matter what dog it jumps. It just gets in the fight. That's Trump. I mean, he'd be walking away from press conferences and people would say stuff and he'd turn around and go back after them. And that's just his makeup. This guy, on the other hand, wants nothing to do with this. Now he's forced out. And his NATO speech the other night, well, his sit down with Steffi was bad. The NATO thing is what it was. And now comes tonight. And tonight is, and again, there are historians and politicians, political historians who talk about pressure cooker moments. Richard Nixon had these pressure cooker moments. Now, the eyes of the world, and by the way, do you plan on listening and watching? Because I certainly do. I got a really, really busy day and I got a meeting tonight, but I tell you what, 3:30 this afternoon, I'll be like, wherever I am, I'm going to watch it on TV because I want to watch his eyes. But the eyes of the world will be on, again, Joe Biden. And for a while there, it looked like Biden could have pulled this out. I forgot to ask Blake that because Blake had the overs and unders. And Blake has had Friday for his, I'm thinking now it might be Monday. I'm thinking Monday, but the sooner now they got to. But so I do want to play this Churchill thing again because this gives me chills. And it's 1941. And although their backs are still to the wall and they've not gone ashore in Europe, Africa, North Africa there are enormous problems in North Africa with Rommel. United States of America has not yet come into the war. Lend-Lease is on. And that man drank. He was, you never want to take another man's inventory, but there's a pretty good chance that Winston Churchill had a major problem with drugs and alcohol. Not with drugs, but with alcohol. And and those pictures, and he's in St. Paul's and there's a hole in the roof. And, he walks through the neighborhoods and he's got the cigar in his mouth and that hat on. And he gets out of the car and he rides and he's an elitist. He's a total elitist. And so he goes into Commons and they don't want him. Remember early on, man, they do not want Halifax and all of those. They'd been through the First World War. They did not want to go through another world war. They didn't want to go through it. They feared Hitler. They were afraid of Mussolini. And this guy wasn't. This guy said no. And so they have turned the corner. And I'm thinking about this line, and I'm sure it isn't Joe saying the line, but it applies to Joe. Sir Winston Churchill, 1941.
This is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end. But it is perhaps the end of the beginning.
So, does that line hold up? Is this the end of the beginning? Tonight, is it the end of the beginning? 303-696-1971. Lines are wide open. And watching tonight, how much impact do you think George Clooney had when he calls for a new Democrat nominee? And someone called it the Hollywood plan to plea for Joe Biden to step aside. And there's some polling data. Again, it's raw, it just drops. It's only a snapshot showing other Democrats outperforming Biden against Trump, but not Biden. And what do you think is going on? I mean, I like I said, if I live long enough and the books are written and people will know, we now know what was taking place, for instance, in the Kennedy White House. We now know what was going on inside the Johnson White House. We don't really know yet because there's a theory that it takes a generation to die out before the historians can really, really, really weigh and measure. And some of the best work on World War II is only being done now because that generation is gone. So load them up, 303-696-1971. How do you feel about tonight? What's the purpose of tonight? They're trying to show you that this guy's lights are on. What do you expect? So it's wide open. Your turn. I'm Peter Boyles. This is 710 KNUS.
At this hour in the UK, I'm John Beaver, and here are the top stories we're following. President Biden is due to hold a press conference later at the close of the NATO summit in Washington, D.C. It will be the first time reporters have had the chance to ask him questions face to face since his disastrous debate performance. From Washington, Kate Fisher reports.
The focus of the NATO summit may be helping Ukraine to defeat Russia, but much of the attention has been on the health of the leader of NATO's biggest contributor, US President Joe Biden. On Thursday, he'll be holding a press conference amid growing questions about his viability as a presidential candidate. It comes after a debate with Donald Trump in which he stumbled and lost his train of thought. His performance at this press conference will be scrutinised by voters and the world leaders gathered at the NATO summit. In Washington, Kate Fisher, Salem News Channel.
The opening arguments have taken place in the trial of the actor Alec Baldwin in New Mexico. The 66-year-old has pleaded not guilty to involuntary manslaughter charges after he shot and killed cinematographer Helena Hutchins on the set of the Western movie Rust in 2021. The prosecution describes him as reckless, playing make-believe with a real gun. The defence argues that he was told the gun was harmless before it was handed to him. And that's what you need to know at this hour.
Peter Boyles in for Jeff and Bill. They're back here Monday. I have today, tomorrow, and Saturday morning. 710 KNUS Denver's talk station. Boy, the weather. 97 to high, 102 tomorrow, 103 on Sunday. When you hot, you hot. Well, the Democrats are giving Joe Biden really just hours to save his second term, aren't they? Literally hours to save his second term. And if you saw Nancy Pelosi, if you're watching Chucky Schumer, all of a sudden Chuck Schumer's going, well, maybe. And one of the things that I think is most interesting, you all remember Donald Trump, don't you? Like for almost 2 weeks since that debate, he's quiet. And that's very uncharacteristic for him, but I think Donald Trump is listening to his handlers. One of the many, many, many critiques of his attempt to be reelected was he didn't listen to anybody. I don't care if it was debates. I don't care if it was what he said or what he didn't say. And you go back to that horrible debate, the right, absolute right, Donald Trump showed up. And even when I guess they gave Biden, the nuke, bring up his morals and do this and say this about him having sex with porno queens, he rolled with it. He shrugged, what are you going to do? And now he would have, I think, years ago, he would have come back, flailing. He didn't do it. And so now he's been, for 2 weeks almost, he's been quiet. And remember, the National Republican Convention begins in a couple of days. And the man who needs attention, needs water, has been content to stay low. And there's that great line, when your enemy is destroying himself, don't try to help. Don't buy trouble. And when your enemy is destroying himself, don't try to help. Biden's failing. The Democratic Party is crumbling. The Biden campaign, I don't know. Is it done? So I'm going to get your turns in here. But the Democrats are giving Joe Biden just hours to save his second term. I was trying to write some of this stuff down last night. Today at 3:30 our time. And again, historians use that term, pressure cooker. But this could seal his fate. Guy's 81 years old. And he needs to calm the growing calls from within his party about age and his health and everything that goes with it, that none of this counts, that he's going to be smooth sailing and he can win. Do you think any of that's true? I'll read you. There's a couple of things coming in, some things off of the wall. It's funny, Democrats think he's fit to run for president again, but still think he's fit. Oh, I see. It's funny, Democrats don't think he's fit to run for president again, but still think he's fit to be in office right now. No, that was my reaction to that first debate, was he's going back to the Resolute desk and my grandson's future sitting there. Me, who'd I have? Medved, I think. Medved and I had this conversation. I said, I'm an old guy. I ran my race. What are you really going to do to me? And the answer is nothing. It's been done. So it isn't me. Please. But look at these little guys. And this guy's here. So it's like a drip, 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 drip. And it really does hearken to Watergate. Every day there was a new issue, a new person came forward, something happened, and it got closer and closer and closer to Nixon. Now here's this guy, and Nixon would give those lame press conferences. The American people need to know that. We should find that cut. American people need to know their president is not a crook. Well, I'm not a crook. Famous moment. Well, of course you are. The fact that you have to deny it tells you something. All right, boss, I think we need to turn here. Joe Biden tonight and I'll find out here in a little bit whether here at 710 we'll carry it. You'll be able to get that one in your teeth. Everybody will be carrying that one. So I can't put my arms around this. What do you call this moment? Is it a showdown? And Biden's blaming the elites too, which I think is real interesting. Let's blame the elites. But the eyes of the world will be on this 81-year-old guy in a press conference after that debate disaster against Donald Trump, in this pressure cooker moment. He will seal or unseal the fate of his reelection bid tonight. These are epoch moments. These are crossroads moments. These don't come often, if ever. And here he comes. So 303-696-1971. Everybody's sitting on the edges of their seats. The beginning of the end. Hang on. I'm Peter Boyles. It's hot outside, 710 KNUS. Thursday morning, everyone, a day that will live in infamy. This is quite the day. Of course, as you know, the president will give his first, I guess, free-form press conference this afternoon at 3:30. I'm Peter Boyles in for the fellas, Jeff and Billy. 97 to high, 102 tomorrow, and look at Sunday, 103 degrees. Quickly take a message here. This is going to be another scripted presser where he's got his cheat sheet. You know, I don't think so. Not on this one. And I can't tell you why my gut says that, but it does. Hey, Brian, you're on a radio show. Good morning. Thank you. It's Thursday.
Hey, Pete. The only thing I can think why they're doing this is, you know, we have two camps. We have the Biden camp and we got the Obama camp. And I think they're both fighting and they're saying, okay, Joe, you're not stepping down. Prove it. And they're making a mockery of this guy so that when they pull the plug, it's legitimate.
See,
that's the only way. There's no way. Even if you give him questions, he'll forget them.
Well, what I think one of the interesting things, and again, someday we'll know, when they issued that early challenge, there was no need to have a debate. You know, presidential debates usually happen in October, September. But the Biden team called Trump out in the aftermath of the New York trials. Trump jumped on it, and he really didn't have to do anything. Trump just had to not turn into Donald Trump, but rather let Joe Biden stand there and melt like the witch in Wizard of Oz. And so they got to bring him back. This is tonight. I'm telling you, man. He is trying to save his second term tonight, for real.
Pete, it's not going to happen.
Well, no, I'm not saying it's going to happen.
But this is what it is, and I agree with you. This is the two camps finally saying, okay, we want him to step down. He doesn't want to.
Yeah.
Then go prove it.
That's right.
And even if the press has all these questions, we know this guy can't perform.
I agree.
And then they're going to pull the plug.
I agree.
There's nothing else they can do. Trump challenged him to golf, for God's sakes, and he took the bait with Trump, and now that guy couldn't swing a golf club to save his life, and now he's stuck with the challenge he can't respond to.
Well, no, but again, understand that this is, at least I think, this is an old man in being propped up by the people around him who are doing him a great disservice. They're also doing the nation a great disservice. And now when these celebrity Hollywood donors, including the biggest of them all, George Clooney, they call for him to quit. And their scheduling for donors for next month's Democratic National Convention has been scrapped. And that's called historians call that the drip, drip, drip. Now, why? And again, your point's so well taken. Why does he want to go out there tonight one more time? And
he's stubborn.
Stumped.
It's stumped, but I think we have two camps against each other. But he lost the media recently. He's going to lose Hollywood, and then he's going to lose corporate donors. Come on, nobody can win without that.
He's lost
nobody.
He's lost all the money. When you lose the money. You know, what's our great line? Anytime somebody tells you, hey, Peter, it's not about the money, it's about the money. And so
I think our next question is, Pete, who's it going to be?
Well,
I think after tonight, I think that's going to be the big topic.
It'll be the on-air. I wouldn't miss doing a show tomorrow morning for.
How lucky you get to be, and we get to have you back for this.
Oh yeah, sure.
Thanks for taking my call. I'm along for the ride with one of my old friends. I love it, Pete.
You're kind, man. Thank you very much. Before we go back to the phones, Kelly Michaels was, because we're playing these different cuts. Richard Nixon, and this is a Nixon's moment where he's trying to lie to you. And what date do they put on this Nixon cut, Cal? What does it say for a Nixon cut? What year or what time? It doesn't say the year, but it says I'm not a crook. This is it. Now, Nixon is facing the American people, and he's trying to con all of us again that he had nothing to do with this. And of course he did. So thinking about tonight, and Nixon's lights were on, Nixon's oars were in the water. There was nobody better than Nixon. But this is what he told the American people. Kelly, if you would.
And I want to say this to the television audience. I made my mistakes. But in all of my years of public life, I have never profited from public service. I've earned every cent. And in all of my years of public life, I have never obstructed justice.
Of course
and
he
I
did.
think, too, that I can say that in my years of public life, that I welcome this kind of examination because people have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.
President?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So it ain't like it hadn't happened before, right? Richard Nixon stands there. Frank, you're on the show. Good morning. It's a Thursday.
Hey, Peter, this is No Life Frank. Yeah, I remember those speeches as if they happened this morning.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
Nixon's speech, Johnson's speech, even Clinton's speech, that woman, Monica Lewinsky. It's all more, it's a lot more drama. And, I guess it's entertaining. My daughter said when she saw Biden in the debate that she just felt sorry for the guy. And
You know
I
what?
guess that's what
my
that's what
daughter,
I feel.
my daughter said the same thing, Frank.
Yeah. Well, leave it to the women to feel that way, right?
So what's
Anyway,
your best guess? Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, he's toast. Let's face it, he's toast. One way or the other, he's toast. But the saddest thing is that we're not talking about the real issues at hand, namely the policies that have got us our nation into this failing state that you talk about frequently.
But this is front. This is front burner. I mean, this is destiny. This is who will be.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. It's entertaining, and
No,
I'll
it's beyond
definitely
that.
watch.
Oh, sure you will. But it's beyond. I mean, you're right about the entertainment factors and everything you say about what your daughter said, my daughter said. But this is still setting the course for what is to come.
I don't know if it really is, Peter. I think the course was laid a long time ago. The course was laid. This is not going to change anything. The course has been laid.
No, I disagree. I mean, it's going to be.
What could it change?
Well, administrations change, things change, policies change, people change. I think one of the most interesting things to watch right now is the silence of Donald Trump. Donald Trump has.
Well, but you just mentioned that he's listening to his handlers. No, he's not. He's listening to himself. He's a smart guy. You don't give him credit for that.
Please, you're jumping ahead of me. What I'm saying to you is, for almost 2 weeks now, and that's very uncharacteristic. You can, I'm sure, agree that Donald Trump has been quiet. And
he learned from his loss. He learned from his loss 4 years ago when he thundered in on Biden during the debate.
Well, if he did, he didn't learn from Hillary and he didn't learn from Biden. But I think now he has perhaps, and it's debatable, decided to listen to some people who go, look, Mr. Trump, lay out, stay away.
Well, did you see his speech in Florida?
At Doral? Yeah, sure. Yeah.
That wasn't laying out. He was right. It was right up there.
He's preaching to the choir. I mean, that's not what we're talking about. He's not.
Well, he's not consolidating his base.
He's preaching to he's not jumping.
And he's bringing more people in.
All right. He's not jumping into the thing that you and I will witness this afternoon and tomorrow. He has been, in essence,
because he's a smart man.
Well, all right. The devil was due. Thanks for your call. 303-696-1971. Folks on the phones, hang on. This is an epoch moment. This is the end of the beginning. Watch tonight. Maybe we could call this the canary in the mine shaft. As you know, old coal miners would take the canaries down. When a canary dropped, get the hell out of here. There's gas down here. So if Joe goes over on his side tonight, we're bailing out. 97 the high, 102 Friday, 100, and tonight's the night. Morning, everybody. Peter Boyles in for Jeff and Bill. They're back here on Monday morning. I get today and tomorrow and Saturday, and there's no better time to do talk radio and what's going to happen today. It is a Thursday, July the 11th, 2024, 710 KNUS Weather Center weather. It's hot, 97, 102 tomorrow. Look at Sunday, 103 degrees from a seemingly abandoned warehouse high atop the Hotel Smokey the Bear, lower downtown, and the hotel sheets. Remember that? Yeah, those great lines from the hotel sheets.
That's right.
The Olsen report. It's been such a gas, man. I mean, I'm going to miss you on Saturday.
Same here, man.
You won't be
Maybe
gigging?
I'll call you.
Yeah, sure. Call the show.
You're on there long enough.
I'm telling you.
Are you on there 8 hours now?
K. Peter.
Man, that is awesome. I remember we were driving around. One of my sons said I had you on, and I think we got back in the car like 3 hours later. He's like, "Hey, wow, he's still on."
Oh, you got to want a gig.
Yeah, man, that's right.
You want
that's
the ball
way to do it.
I've told
no,
everybody.
I love it. The show is great on Saturday, by the way.
Oh, you're kind. But
And then Caldera right before it. It's awesome.
All I ever wanted was the ball. Give me the ball.
That's right, man. Give me the ball.
Give me the ball.
Give him the damn ball.
Because you and I talk prize fighting, and tonight, you know, the belief in professional fighting is you got to knock the champ out. Rarely, if ever, does a belt switch on points, although it has happened. But you know, the referee and the ringside officials, they want to see a knockout.
Got to go to the canvas
to see the belt switch.
Yeah.
Why is this now? Is this guy going into the ring tonight for his final? Is this his last fight?
I agree with Brian, who just called you. I'm sure a few of the callers. I didn't hear all of them, but yeah, this has got to be the knockout. They're rolling him, and his ego is so big, and Jill's ego is so big, and that whole team, and they're just like, okay, you go out and here we go. We need to finish this off. Instead of stepping aside, maybe this is their plan all along. All right, we'll give them the opportunity, and then this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna send him out to the wolves, and there's no way he's going to survive. And then they're going to go with Kamala.
You think it's her? You think it's her?
Yeah. I mean, it has to be, right? With all the identity politics.
It doesn't have to be.
Yeah, maybe not. I think, I just think that party and all the special interests, they'll be raising holy hell if she isn't. But then again,
no, they want to win, and she's not a winner.
Good point.
I mean,
I wouldn't be surprised by that either. I'm throwing it out there.
All these other things will go out the window: political correctness and woke and everything.
Really?
Because
they want to win.
Because they want to win.
Bottom line is they want to win.
And now, who's their winner? Who's their winner?
Well, who does Obama like? Because that's who
you say that, but and again, I think there's you give a lot of weight to that, but
but I mean, who do you see? Who's the guy from Pennsylvania? I don't know. There's someone from who now I can't think of his name, but Shapiro or something like that.
What they have to. This is personal belief, and it has no meaning. They got to go outside the box. Look, these are hackneyed. These people have been here before. They've done the dance so many times. I would no more want them because, one of the things that Trump did do is he brought this new approach. He's Trump and everything that goes with it. But what the Dems need to do is find their Donald Trump and go outside the box, maybe business, maybe industry, I don't know, entertainment, sports, it almost doesn't matter. And bring that person in. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg or, you can like him, but here's our guy.
Right. Here's our guy.
Here's our guy.
Mark Cuban, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, whomever.
No, it's true. Well, that's why you're going to be here tomorrow. And that's why all weekend and for the next 5-6 days. So you and I talked about this. Friday is going to be our new day. That's kind of here. Here we go.
Here we go.
So
Yeah.
my official day is Tuesday. That's what I said like 30 days ago.
You know what I said? And I said this, I mean, about you, because remember when you said that, you about going to Vegas and you had Friday.
Right.
You had Joe Biden.
Had to change, go to the window.
You had to go to the window, go back to the window. But you had Biden in the points, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, all we got to do is switch your bet to Monday because
true.
Over the weekend
True.
when the phones ring and and the limos pull up and everybody gets out and they go, look at me, Joe, you got to go.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go out on your shield. You can go out as a warrior.
Yeah. You bring up a good point real quickly. No matter, I mean, they could put almost anyone in there of their choosing and they're gonna support them.
Sure.
I mean, generally speaking,
but it won't be Kamala.
No,
It
you're
can't
right.
be Kamala. I mean,
okay.
She won't hold up.
Okay. Well, man,
but you get to play, you
fascinating.
park her. You get her. I said, get her a job in an Ivy League school. Let her be chancellor of an Ivy League school.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a prestigious moment. And, for God's sake, don't put her on the Supreme Court.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Now it's time.
Oh, my God.
Now it's time for the Olson Report. It's yours.
All right, Peter. Thank you. 64 and sunny in Denver. Expecting highs in the upper 90s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
And the most diverse cabinet in history. I think that goes sometimes unnoticed.
I promised I was going to have a cabinet.
Joe takes the mic.
And it does. More minorities, more women, more labor. I'm serious. Think about it.
Off script.
That's who we are. That's why we're strong. We're diverse. We're strong. We got to stop looking at it like
And then the camera. Take the camera off the tripod and there it goes. Well, that happened today. Will it go to color bars? It's scheduled to start at 3:30. Will he be able to handle the real questions from a media that now they're actually wanting him gone?
with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if
it's the first time he's taking questions solo since November of last year.
Asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of this.
Axios reporting that Chucky Schumer is open to dumping Biden. George Clooney spoke to Obama, and that's official. He didn't say to do it or not to do it, and then he took out an op-ed saying, Clooney did, he loves Joe, but we need a new nominee. And no surprise, Van Jones says that the Democrats will run Kamala Harris, even though Pete doesn't believe it one way or another. And that's no laughing matter.
More parents are seeing the value of educators when they had to bring their kids and say, we're not paying them nearly enough.
But DNC Chair Jamie Harrison says, get behind Stumbling Joe.
We were talking a few months ago about how amazing Joe Biden's speech was, one of the best speeches we've ever seen in the State of Union. And because of a 90-minute debate, we throw all of that away? Come on, folks. Focus on what is important.
Well, we know who the border czar is, and that would be Kamala Harris, and she's done a wonderful job. And Democrats on Wednesday voting against the SAFE Act. Former Trump advisor Stephen Miller.
This should be a pox on the entire Democrat Party. The Democrat Party has just declared they support illegal aliens voting, and every American, whether they're liberal, conservative, independent, wherever they fit in that matrix, they should kick the Democrats out of Washington for having the temerity to support illegal alien voting.
And speaking of illegal aliens, in a congressional hearing on big tech censorship, somehow it turned, and Ben Shapiro just owns Eric Swalwell, the dude who slept with the Chinese spy, subject deportation. Shapiro, oh my goodness.
Mass deportations, it calls for that. Do you support that part?
I support the deportation of any illegal immigrant who's in the United States who is not of benefit to the generalized American public.
So if they're picking agriculture that puts food on the tables of everyday Americans, they've never committed a crime inside the United States, they didn't come across with documents. Should they be deported?
If they have not paid taxes and if their draw on the taxpayer benefits are larger than the contribution they are making to the economy, or if they're involved in criminal activity, they should be deported.
Oh my goodness. He should be embarrassed after that one, Swalwell. Hey, Biden scheduled to meet with Ukrainian President Zelensky today as the NATO summit wraps up in D.C. Looks like Ukraine will become a member, another foreign policy problem that Trump will have to clean up if he's elected. AOC filing articles of impeachment against Supreme Court Justices Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito.
Justices Thomas and Alito's years-long pattern of misconduct and failure to recuse in cases bearing their clear personal and financial involvement represents an abuse of power.
Get that big stuff out of here. Democrats have railed against the Supreme Court after a series of rulings and what they call ethics controversies. The impeachment articles are not expected to go anywhere in the Republican-controlled House. The couple accused of leaving 190 decomposing bodies in their Fremont County funeral home will be arraigned this morning. Prosecutors already offered John and Carrie Halford a deal if they plead guilty to state charges. If they pled guilty to state charges, both are expected to enter not guilty pleas. If that happens, they only have until October to accept the deal. The couple still faces federal charges. Alec Baldwin's involuntary manslaughter trial in New Mexico continues today. The Rockies getaway day in Cincinnati. First pitch 11:10. They beat the Reds last night 6-5. 57 in Golden, 62 in Aurora, 64 in Denver. Pete continues. He's in for Jeff and Billy today and tomorrow. He's excited about that. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast. Heat advisories are in effect as we head into tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday. Hot, sunny, mid-90s today, 60s tonight. Hot with upper 90s to near 100 for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Nothing more than isolated thunderstorms. Not as hot with a better chance of thunderstorms by Tuesday. Weather sponsored by Branch Planning. Some income annuities are paying 25 to 45% more than last year. Get a free retirement review by calling Branch Planning today at 720-651-9800. Find out more at branchplanning.com. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Morning, everybody. Thanks, fellas. They're back Monday. It's Thursday morning, July the 11th. Tonight, actually this afternoon, at 3:30 our time, Joe Biden gives his first press conference since his debate disaster against Donald Trump. Historians, political theorists call these pressure cooker moments. The eyes of the world will be on the 81-year-old POTUS and these growing calls from the Democratic Party to get out of there. And what happens next? It is just an amazing moment. Can't wait to be back here tomorrow to watch this thing come apart. A couple things on the wall, and then we'll go back to the phones. I tell you, if they don't pick Harris, Republicans had better pounce on them for passing over a black woman. We're talking about, is this the end? We've been playing bits and pieces of great speeches by Winston Churchill and, of course, by Richard Nixon. We'll do this. We start with Dustin on line one. Dustin, you waited. Good morning. Thanks. You're on the show.
Good morning, Uncle Pete. Glad to hear you during the week here. What a special treat. Let's talk scooters for a second. All along, I understood that a shovelhead and a knucklehead were Harley motors, not presidential candidates.
Touche. Good shot.
Touche. Predication. He's going to vapor lock again, just like the debate.
Yeah, I think so, too.
It just, old carburetor, hot old motor, hot day, boiling fuel. It's over.
What did we have to do? You remember you had to open up your tank because of...
let the pressure off.
Yeah, what did they call that when it got real hot and you couldn't kick your bike, and then you opened up the top of the tank and let the air pressure come in? Vapor lock.
Vapor lock.
Vapor lock.
Yep.
Yeah, vapor lock.
He's going to vapor lock again.
You know what? That's great. I'm glad you said that because I've had bikes vapor lock up on me, and it's pretty scary when it happens. But yeah, but you got to unscrew the top gas cap, and then it goes shh, makes that noise.
Lets all that pressure out.
Yeah, no. Man, how do you dope this out? So what happens? How long does he go? Do you think he's got an hour in him? Because I don't.
Well, he's having meetings with Zelensky and all this other stuff today, so he's going to be completely gassed out already. I don't know. It's just going to be disastrous. It's unfortunate that his family props him up, so we all have to witness this. It is akin to elderly abuse, if you will. It's bad for the nation to have to endure this anyways. And I don't know who's waiting down the bench for the Dems there.
Well,
is it Gavin Newsom? Is it? I'd have to subscribe to your theory. It'd be in everybody's best interest if they rolled out talking scooters again. We need a Evolution motor or an M8 or even a twin cam here instead of one of these old knuckleheads.
Get the Evo. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you read what's behind the scenes in NATO right now, the NATO allies have been, I guess, seeking reassurances about Biden's abilities, and they have fears. And Biden has blamed his debate meltdown on a bad cold. I read this really interesting critique, and I wish I'd come up with it. So Dr. Jill tells everybody, and Joe tells everybody that he had a bad cold. Well, what do they do when it's over? They take him to the Waffle House or someplace, and you think to yourself, you're sitting in there, you're normal Dustin, normal Peter, we're eating some waffles, and they bring this sick guy in.
Well, he can't pour the syrup on his own waffles by himself anyway.
No, but my point is, what are you thinking? If the guy's sick, you don't bring him around, around people.
Well, he's not sick. That's just smoke and mirrors.
That's right. Exactly. It's a bluff.
It's a feeble excuse for a feeble old man.
So Biden has insisted that he is committed to running in November. George Clooney comes out and he said he's going to lose. Wrap it up for me, Dustin. What happens?
Well, just like you said earlier, you lose the money, you lost the show.
You bet.
They're at the end.
How many times has anybody ever said to you, Dustin, this is not about the money?
Then it's all about the money.
It's always about the money. I mean, my mentor, the late, great Bob Lee, he told me one time, some guy was saying, boys, this isn't about the money. Bob said, yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
It always is.
Have a super day, Pete.
See what happens. All right, we go to Ralph. Hey, Ralph, you're on a radio show, 303-696-1971. Ralph, happy Thursday.
Peter.
Yes.
Is this a private fight or can anyone get in?
That's from the Quiet Man. Is this a private fight or can anybody join? Yes.
Yeah. The Democrats have got to put the focus back on Trump. And I think something that has not surfaced, but some people are thinking about, is basically Trump's enemies list. Now, remember, you and I go back to Nixon.
Oh, sure.
And Nixon had an enemies list.
No question.
And the incompetent plumbers were, how shall I say, about the only way he really was able to do a damn thing. Because the deep state refuses to go along with some stuff.
No, actually, he turned the IRS loose on people. They used the CIA, and its charter is for foreign intelligence gathering. They turned the CIA loose on the country. To his credit, if you want to ever give him credit, it was one of those moments when Hoover didn't want to go, didn't want to go.
No, but Pete, that's my point. That you had large chunks of the what do you want to call it, bureaucracy that were not going to go along with Nixon, and that Nixon could not, with all the other, as you call them, the people who showed up in the limousine, he could not replace them. Now, step back and consider. Trump has 4 more years. I'm certain that he has an enemies list that is longer than Nixon's because it includes basically all Democratic leaders, plus rhinos, plus people who have said nasty things about him or his family.
But Nixon's enemies list had members of the press corps on it. It had,
sure. You think the Halbert? Never mind. Go ahead.
No, I got to know Pat Buchanan pretty well, and I just revere Pat Buchanan. He was Nixon's speechwriter. He was Agnew's speechwriter.
Right.
But he knew, and he told me this great story. When the enemies list story comes out, and guys that he grew up in the elite world of the East Coast, and so he had friends that he went to school with. He told me the story, and he said they called him up. And they said, Pat, can you get me on the list? Because it was the red badge of courage. It was waving the bloody shirt. I'm on Nixon's enemies list. And they wanted to be on Nixon's enemies list because Nixon was on the downhill slide at that point. This guy, how close to going out the door, Ralph, is Joe Biden right now?
Oh, I think the wheels are on his chair. But I think the problem, Peter, is this. And you've hit it and Blake's hit it. Once you edge him out, however that happens, the question is, who are you going to put in? Because the question is, who can possibly beat Trump?
Yeah.
And I don't think, and Blake is right, it's not going to be some of these old dinosaurs that are there.
No.
So what you've got to do is get someone who is young, possibly a veteran, possibly or maybe a female, and basically not much in terms of what her political history is, as far as, it's sort of like what you want to do is a bright, shining knight, or I don't know what you call it, female knightess.
No, I agree.
And then you turn everything on Trump, including his aide.
I agree. I mean, it's this Hegelian moment where none of these people in the Democratic Party, I don't know, there's some polling data I brought in this morning. And again, polls are snapshots and they're liquid and fluid, but new polls, and it's Politico and it's a number of different outfits, Donald Trump leading Biden. But others find that Kamala Harris and, believe it or not, 2016 candidate Hillary Clinton have better shots at beating Donald Trump than Joe Biden.
God help us.
Oh no,
Peter,
yes, but if remember, the most important thing is to win.
Yeah, and the thing is, all I wanted to point out this morning is, look, there are a bunch of people who, when they look at what 4 more years of Trump would mean for them, not Democrats. I'm talking about Republicans.
Oh, I know.
Rhinos, Liz Cheney, Dick Cheney. You're talking about they haven't really come out against Trump. If they're in office, they can't because they don't want to get primaried or screwed by him if he wins. But that is how shall I say? I think that's going to be the swing that if they can get it, the Dems can win.
All right, let me ask you the final question. Yesterday, I'm reading Joe Biden, I'll just read you, has insisted that he is committed to running in November and winning the presidency for a second term. Yes or no? Is he telling lies? Are he talking the truth? Is he bluffing? Is he talking out of his hat?
One word answer, Pelosi.
Well, and she's a grand.
Basically, what did he say?
Yeah.
I mean, this you want to talk about the sharpest tool still in terms of intelligence on the Dem Party.
She is.
And the thing is, which way she can persuade Joe to go. And I think she wants him out.
Yes.
Is how this thing's going to turn out.
Here we go.
Hey, baby.
Hi, man. 303-696-1971. Do we have time to play those cuts again before we have to take a break? Whatever you want to do, boss. It's 3:30 we got Nixon.
And I want to say this to the television.
There he is.
I made my mistakes. But in all of my years of public life, I have never profited from public service. I've earned every cent. And in all of my years of public life, I have never obstructed justice. And I think, too, that I can say that in my years of public life, that I welcome this kind of examination, because people have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.
President. Mr. President. So that was that great Nixon moment, and he's clearly lying. There's just, I've never obstructed justice. Of course you did. There's no question that you did. And match that up to someone like Churchill. And I had this brain gas last night. We played Churchill yesterday on just people that are able to communicate and how radio is so important. And Churchill gives this speech, some chicken, some neck. And it's legendary speech. But then I'm thinking last night, he gave this great speech, and is it apt to what we're watching right now historically? Now, this was done in 1941. They've turned the tide, the Battle of Britain. It will go on, but those, the Goering, Luftwaffe, and to soften them up, and there was something called, Hitler had something called Operation Sea Lion. It was the invasion of England, of the islands, and they've turned it back. And here's this man, and the way he sets this up, and I think it's a Joe Biden setup, and not because I compare and contrast them, but rather just what's said. And you've seen those pictures. Remember, they go to St. Paul's and there's holes in the roof, and he's got that hat and the cigar and the cane, and there's always pictures of him with a Thompson submachine gun. I mean, he was in that time frame from September 39 till 42, 43. He really did carry it. And so he gave this speech. Does it apply to what we're watching right now?
This is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end. But it is perhaps the end of the beginning.
Love it. The end of the beginning. Tonight the end of the beginning. And when Joe Biden, I don't know what he's going to say. Nixon was quick. I mean, the devil his due. Nixon was fast, quick, except he was telling lies. And at that point, when he's saying that, he did not obstruct justice, that's because it was getting closer and closer and closer. Sam Ervin and the Watergate Committee, and they were getting closer and closer to him. And each layer of that onion, more and more of those stalwarts on his staff, Jeb Stuart Magruder, Eagle Crow, I can still name them, Erickman, Halderman, John Mitchell. Liddy's the only one. Gordon, we were talking about Gordon Liddy yesterday in a radio show. Liddy never ratted. He took it right on the chin. Went to DC jail, man. And when all those other and the Cubans, Felix Rodriguez and those guys, there's a military prison in Florida, Elkland. They went there, which was a real hard place. He went to, and actually when he goes to Pennsylvania, the federal prison, and he's in there with Jimmy Hoffa, and he's in there with Tony Provenzano. Man, he was Jimmy shook time, and yeah, and I think the other guys, the sort of white collar people around Nixon, what was that place, Lompoc, that you could play tennis? they went there, but no, man, Gordon Liddy did. But he never talked. He never ratted. And how quickly these other guys will rat. So Joe Biden tonight, what do you think? 303-696-1971, the end of the beginning.
At this hour in the UK, I'm John Beaver, and here are the top stories we're following. There's a new way to buy ammunition in some southern US states. Hayley Bianco explains.
A company has installed vending machines that sell ammunition in grocery stores in Alabama, Oklahoma, and Texas. American Rounds company officials say the machine scanned driver's licenses and used facial recognition software to verify age. The company CEO says the technology makes a transaction at least as secure as online purchases. But activists say these safety measures belong in gun stores, not in places where families buy groceries. American Rounds has one machine in Alabama, 4 in Oklahoma, and 1 in Texas, with plans for another in Texas and 1 in Colorado in the coming weeks. Federal law requires a person to be 18 to buy shotgun and rifle ammunition and 21 to buy handgun ammunition. The ammunition vending machine requires a buyer to be at least 21.
There are calls for greater regulation of the chemicals used to manufacture synthetic drugs, such as methamphetamine and fentanyl. Mexican Navy officials running the country's biggest port are warning of a rising amount of dual-use chemicals coming into the country, much of it from China. They can be used legally in everything from the food to perfume industries, but are also a key component in the production of some narcotics. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm John Beaver.
Thursday morning, everyone. Peter Boyles in for the fellas. They're back here on Monday morning. Tonight's a big night. Joe Biden, his first press conference, 303-696-1971 is our phone number. 97, a high 102, and then Saturday 100 and Sunday 103 degrees. Talk radio, no man, it's master. So we're talking during the break, and Kelly Michaels is our boss, and he's kind enough to be running the board, all of us this morning. And I was talking about Gordon Liddy. You got a great Liddy story.
Well, we used to run Liddy here on one of our stations back in the day. And I got a call from corporate that pretty much said, we need to drop the show. We want you to drop the show. So I'm like, okay, great. So I called these people and I said, we're going to drop the show. And then probably about 15 minutes later, I get a call in the office on my direct line, and it's G. Gordon Liddy. And he's like, what's going on?
What are you doing?
What are you doing, man?
Yeah.
It's my show. What's the reason? You know, he was just, he was not happy. He was not a happy guy. And I didn't, you know, I didn't really enjoy that conversation. But, you know, I just had to say, you know, we're moving on. But he's an intimidating dude.
Oh. And he wasn't a big guy. I mean, I've told you my story. He came out of Lewisburg. And he had written the first book, and it was called, I think it was called Control, or it was a spy thriller, you know, and it was called Control. And he came back to Denver. He'd been an FBI agent here. He had worked the Coors kidnapping. And I said, what did you do? And he said, they sat him on a dump in Golden, waiting. And I'm serious. It's a Liddy story. And he was, by the way, pardoned by Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter pardoned Gordon Liddy. So, and he went on to become a talk show host.
A really good talk show host.
Good. Very good. And then, so I met him and I had lunch with him. And I told you the story that he told me that I can't tell on the air, the Gordon Liddy story. But he did 50, I forget. I mean, he did 53 or 55 months. And he did it in Lewisburg. And he was with Jimmy Hoffa and Tony Provenzano. He was a tough guy, and became a real good talk show host. And he was in Sturgis. I think I told you that story. And he had done the radio show with me a couple of times. And so I sent my card back that I stopped out front to see him. He brought me back and went back. And I'm telling you, he really was not a big guy. But he had that great line that I've told you, my favorite Liddy. Liddy said that because he was a convicted felon, he was not allowed to have guns, and which is true. He said, but my wife has 35 of them. But I didn't know you had a moment with Gordon Liddy.
I did. Yeah. I used to see him at conventions and things promoting the show.
Oh, so yeah.
He was committed to the radio show. I mean, that was his thing.
He was great. So. And he had that bushy mustache, and he jumped out of airplanes, played the piano. Man, he did but he was such a hoot. When he came in to Denver after he'd been in Lewisburg, and he came out, and he had that white raincoat on. And I remember I was working at BZ, and I opened up that door, and he's standing there because now you know him because you've seen him. You know, he's a burglar. He's a plumber, you know, and there he is. And I said, I was supposed to say, you're Gordon Liddy, you know, and he was and I'd read his book, and he was a wonderful interview. And he said, I don't know anybody. He said, you want to have lunch? And I went, we're Gordon Liddy?
Yeah.
Who's buying? And we went and had lunch. And I saw him, talked to him a couple times after that, but saw him again. But those guys, and we're talking about, you know, Nixon speeching about, I'm not a crook. And those guys are, you know, they're doing it. They're doing it for the trickster.
Like you said, the layers are just, you know, they're getting peeled, and we're getting to the truth.
Yeah.
Whether it's Nixon or
Trump, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so Joe Biden tonight starts speechifying to the country. What's he trying to do, boss? Trying to save his job.
Yeah. He's in damage control mode.
Yeah. No,
full damage control mode.
He's sliding down the pole.
But it's interesting to watch how people are, you know, coming out of the woodwork to to call for him to get out of here,
holding his head under the water.
It's crazy. There is no loyalty.
Here's the most wonderful text of the morning. Peter, could it be that tonight Biden announces he's bowing out of the election and he's going to spend more time with his family?
Hey, Delaware's a pretty nice place to retire. He's got the house at Rehoboth.
Yes,
Yeah.
No, he does. Could it be tonight Biden announces he's bowing out? I hadn't even thought of that. Wow, texter, very, very good. Here's one. Liddy's fascinating autobiography. Will. I mean, it's Gordon Liddy. And there guys come around. Liddy never ratted.
He did not.
He did not rat. We've talked about Jenna Ellis and everybody they're ratting on. They're rats. His whole family was rats. Remember in Goodfellas?
Right.
Spider.
Yeah.
Spider's whole family was rats. Jen Ellis is a rat. And the way I grew up, she ratted. And so now here's this. Liddy never ratted.
Yep. Under
52 months.
The way we grew up, you just didn't
tell anybody.
You didn't
rat. I love you. Thank you.
No
All
problem.
right. We go to the phones. This is Jacqueline. You're on a radio show. We made it to a Thursday. Tonight's the big night.
Good morning, Pete. Which Joe Biden's going to show up tonight? Is it going to be the one that stood there and gave a address to the nation, who was angry, shaking his fist, really was, not perfect, but I mean, it wasn't what we saw with the debate with Donald Trump. Now, if he comes out tonight and he's halfway decent, what happens?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's why tonight everything hangs on it. Your points are well taken.
So if he comes out and he's halfway, which he isn't, but I've always thought, and I believe this, I do, that that he's got a ringer. He's got a stand-in. If someone shows up tonight that stands straight up, looks around, who's articulate, shakes hands, doesn't shake, doesn't stupor, I mean, all I'd have to say is that ain't Joe Biden. And I honestly didn't think that was him when he did that debate.
It's him. Body doubles were used a lot in the Second World War. Stalin had a body double, and Churchill had a body double. And when an FDR goes off to meet Churchill, they switch a guy on the boat for him. Everybody, the press corps thinks they think it's FDR, but it's not. Now we'll know too much. You'll see too close. You'll see him. What do you expect him to say?
I don't know what he can possibly say. He's been such a patsy and a stooge for the Democrats that he can get up there and make a total ass out of himself, and he gets blamed. Not Obama, not the Obama administration. None of those people get blamed for any of this stuff. He probably thinks and has been told he's been the best president ever. And in his mind, his feeble mind, he buys what he's being told. I have been enlightened about the last week here about Jill Biden and who she is, who she was when she was young. She was messing with him when his first wife was still alive.
According to the former ex-Mr. Dr. Joe, guy's name is Stevenson. Listen, I think they're afraid to let him come to the surface and start telling stories, but.
Well, Joe Biden went after him and had been after him for a long time.
That's true. That is true.
Used his power. But she was messing with Joe Biden when his first wife was still alive. And when she was killed in that car wreck, she went after him big time.
She was the babysitter for the kids, according to, there's all these legion stories, whether or not they're true or not, is, we'll have to say that, I guess, on the show, but that perhaps when she was.
I don't know.
Yeah, we're going to be kind here, but maybe there was maybe your winky, maybe some of your hanky panky.
Okay, well, I'm off of here now. Okay.
Right, take care of yourself. I think we got a pause coming, don't we, boss? All right. 303-696-1971. For the first time, we've been jam lines since the show kicked this morning. First time, we're wide open lines. And Jeff and Billy back on Monday. I get to work tomorrow. I can't wait. I got the busy day. I got the eye exam. I got to get my toothus fixed. And then I got to meet all my outlaw friends tonight. But I'll be glued at 3:30. I don't know. time stops. And it's almost like those Nixon moments. They really are. And when Nixon, especially when it comes closer and closer to the end, and Nixon has to make these speeches again and again and again, and then it flops. What do you expect to see or hear? I love this fellow's text. He said that maybe this is the night that he, throws it out. Says, I'm done. You can have this. George Clooney calls for a new Democrat nominee. Hollywood pleads for Joe to step aside. Joe is going to give a press conference tonight in a pressure cooker. What do you think? 710 KNUS 303-696-1971. Peter Boyles in for the fellows. They're back on Monday. It is 7:53, 7 minutes before the hour of 8 o'clock. 97 the high, 102, 100, 103. What's 2 or 3 points, right? When it gets to that, what's the diff? We're in open lines. Everybody's talking. What speculation about tonight? I apologize. Hey, Jim. Jim, thanks, man. You're on the show. Good morning.
Good morning, Peter. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Thank you.
I'm just going to shift a little bit with Biden. I just noticed now, now that people are realizing, how bad Biden is. But I've also noticed there's a shift in our politics worldwide. It seems like I think Zelensky wanted to speak to Congress again, and they didn't let him do it.
Yes.
So what does that tell you? I mean, Ukraine has fallen off the radar.
No, because Joe just delivered a lot of weapons, I thought.
Well, yes. I mean, but the point is that Ukraine is now. I think there's a shift that this could be a never-ending war.
What is
from
the
point of view?
It is.
Well, I mean, but I think the American public has now reached a point where we've seen this so many times that it's not going to fly.
You're right.
And I think and Europe is recognized. Well, the one thing that we can say is very interesting is that now you've got countries that would never have joined NATO. You've got Finland, which didn't ever wanted to. They weren't going to do that, and that forced them into that camp. But I think what's going to happen is as this election gets closer, that there will be peace. There will be a settlement.
Well, remember, Trump has said he has this. He can end it. He can end the war. And
yeah, well, that's Trump, right?
No,
that's
I understand.
Trump, right?
But remember Zelensky? 2 days ago, addressed NATO, and what did he say? Give me more weapons.
That's because that's what he's been told to say. But the fact of the matter is, weapons is not going to solve that. Russia makes more weapons than NATO.
Do it quick, because I got about 30 seconds, Jim. Please do it quick.
I'm just going to say that he's going to have to realize that they're going to have to go to the settlement. And then Russia's going to definitely dictate to Ukraine, you are not going to join NATO, and that's going to be a fact.
And Jack Kennedy told Castro, you're not going to have any missiles.
Yeah, I bet they have missiles there in Cuba.
Not now. I mean, they took them out. The Khrushchev took them out. I got to pull the pin. All right, everybody, we turn around and come back. The beginning of the end. This is a big night. Joe Biden will give his first press conference, open catch as catch can, debate disaster after facing Donald Trump. It's a pressure cooker moment. What do you think? 710 KNUS. I'm Peter Boyles. Please stay right here. And good morning, everyone. Peter Boyles in for the fellows. They're back on Monday. I have today. I would pay to do radio tomorrow and pay to do radio on Saturday. This is the big night. And by the way, it's just been moved. Word comes down. They're going to move it to a 4:30 start in Denver. It was going to be a 3:30. Now it's a 4:30. 710 KNUS, Peter Boyles, 97 the high, 102. 100 and Sunday 103 degrees, but what's 2 or 3 degrees? Now comes this tonight. Joe Biden will give his first press conference in his debate disaster after Donald Trump in his pressure cooker moment. He is the man with a plan, ladies and gentlemen. Makes the show work. We can feel the smoke. The lovely and talented Blake Olson, my man. Yeah.
Well, why didn't I think of that? Sorry to interrupt, but why didn't I think of that? The texter said, what if he comes out and announces that he's stepping aside? And I didn't even think of that because his ego is so big. I can't see that happen.
Remember, he's at NATO. You would think if he's going to pull the pin.
Right.
This texter was great.
No, that was great.
And Lyndon Johnson did that. And he did it, I think, March 18th or something, 1968. And chose not to run. But he knew he was beat. The New Hampshire primary had happened.
He did it at the White House, though, didn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so he was at the White House.
Yeah, he gave the hail and farewell speech. But
yeah, I've seen video.
He won the New Hampshire primary, but this guy Gene McCarthy clipped him, and he knew that. One thing you can say about LBJ. Is he understood politics probably, if not as good as anybody.
Oh, you got that right.
Yeah. So
yeah,
and
I remember all those Texans talking about him. And, in that way. I mean, that he understood the game
more than perhaps any. Well, I shouldn't say in recent life, but I'll tell you what. And so he steps aside. He gets out. He knows his legacy will be a drainer.
Yeah.
And it ends up, Bobby Kennedy's assassinated. We've talked about this, all these series of events. And where do they go? This is really, I think, important. Blake, they go to Chicago, 1968. Where are these jokers going? Where are the Democrats going this year?
Going back to Chicago.
Going to Chi-Town.
Man. Okay, let me ask you, how close is it to those days, or is it worse now, or is it not as bad?
You know what? Because then there was the war, there were all these other things were taking place. But now, what do you think the pro-Palestinians are going to do when the Democrats convene in Chicago?
Oh my goodness.
Black Lives Matter.
Oh, they're going to be, Oh no, it's going to be so dangerous. And everyone's turning against each other. They're going to eat their own. And Chicago, it's going to be a repeat.
Yeah,
who knows? A lot of it, a lot of it is pre-planned.
Oh,
right, or all of it.
And that was the original.
It's not organic.
Where they talked about what was then called street theater.
Yeah,
and Abby Hoffman. I mean, all of those now legendary names, and they were not nice. I had an Abby Hoffman moment. It's just not a nice guy, but they went there and they went to embarrass Joe Biden, went to embarrass Hubert Humphrey, and they did.
Yeah.
Remember, they didn't go and mess around with Nixon. They didn't go to the
it was all
the Republicans.
Humphrey.
No, they went to the Democrats.
Right.
So now the eyes of the world. Now it's moved to 4:30, my boy.
Yep, it's gonna be must-see TV.
Then give me
that'll give us a little. Yeah. That'll give me extra time to take a nap.
All right. As an old jock yourself, what do you think they're saying to him?
To Biden?
Yeah, the locker rooms.
Oh yeah. That's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're saying, look, you've done all you can do. You've done an amazing job. Look at the country now. Look how amazing, and it's because of you, Joe, and all those athletes that you never played with, that you said that you played with. They're gonna be proud of you, and this is your day. All those stories that you told, everyone's gonna look up to. Nah, I don't know. I don't see it.
No,
I don't see him buying into any of it.
No,
But,
right? it's that that pregame coach empties the locker room.
Rocky song, AC/DC,
Mickey, Rocky, pre-fight stuff.
Right. That's what I'm looking forward to watching, because it's all going to implode after about 30 seconds.
And someday, as historians all know, that we will know, not tomorrow afternoon, but we will know who will be in the room. Even will Joe be in the room? Will Jill be in the room? Will Hunter be in the room? Will managers?
Will they be beside him?
Yeah.
Will she be sitting in his chair? Will he be standing up?
Absolutely.
He'll be standing up, right? You think this is a lectern type?
Yeah. Remember, Rocky said, "I can't win, can I, Mick?"
Right. Exactly. Adrian.
Hey, well, that first film is the film. After that,
oh God, that is one movie that should not have been redone.
Stallone made tonnage, but I never knew that Clubber Lang killed Mickey till yesterday. All right, my boy.
That's awesome.
Here we go.
All right.
The eyes of the world are on it. Here we go.
All right, man. All right. 70 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the upper 90s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story. Hey, a little heat. The heat is on tomorrow and throughout the weekend. Expect 100-degree temperatures.
My plan is probably not to go hiking those days and to let that pass by.
And speaking of the heat is on President Biden today as he's scheduled to meet with reporters in a real press conference with real questions.
Isn't he supposed to be having a press conference tomorrow? That's right. That's when he's making his announcement.
It's the most depressing headline of the week.
With the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, if asylum officers.
President Trump? I really don't know what he said at the end of this.
Okay, so as Pete said, it's now at 4:30 Denver time. 4:30 Denver time. It's the first time that he's taken questions solo since November of last year. And you know what? DNC chair Jamie Harris, he doesn't care.
We were talking a few months ago about how amazing Joe Biden's speech, one of the best speeches we've ever seen in the State of Union. And because of a 90-minute debate, we throw all of that away? Come on, folks. Focus on what is important.
Axios reporting that Chuck Schumer is open to getting rid of Biden, and George Clooney spoke to Obama and then took out an op-ed saying that he loves Joe, but we need a new nominee. And no surprise, Van Jones says that Democrats will run Kamala Harris one way or another.
You are an old man and a fool.
She knows how to gin up excitement and violence. Remember that?
This is a movement. I'm telling you, they're not going to stop. And everyone beware, because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that they're not going to let up, and they should not.
Oh, yeah. Back in 2020. She's also the border czar, and 12 to 18 million illegals have walked through the open border, and House Democrats on Wednesday voting against the SAFE Act. Former Trump advisor Stephen Miller.
This is really one of the most astounding days in the history of the U.S. House of Representatives. They called a simple question before the House. Should illegal aliens vote in our elections? That was the bill. The Republican bill was, you must prove you are a citizen to vote, period. Virtually every House Democrat voted against the bill and said, we want illegal aliens to be able to vote just by checking a box.
Incredible. The NATO summit wraps up in D.C. Not too soon for the Prime Minister of Italy, Giorgia Meloni, after Biden gave her 2 kisses on her cheeks last night on stage. He leaned over her, and she's a lot shorter, and she leaned back looking very uncomfortable. And Joe was like frozen in time. He was saying something to her. I have no idea. Maybe he was Italian.
Was he macking on her?
It looked like
I thought so too.
Right? Did you see it?
I did.
Yeah, I'm looking at that and I'm like, how is this not like all over the place? Because she is like bending her back, backward, and he's just frozen. I think he was macking on her.
Well,
man.
you remember Aristotle Onassis and Jackie Kennedy. That was legit, man. Jack got the tights. You get home.
Yeah,
she was out on the what was the Christiana? Was that the name of the Aristotle's yacht?
Not sure.
And she and her sister, Princess Roswell, were yachting around the Mediterranean. Oh yeah, with Airy. Huh?
Maybe that's what was happening last night. It was bad. The photos have to be bad.
I saw that. Do you think that he was macking on Dr. Joe?
No, I think so. I think he had no idea. It's just like now we didn't talk about this week, but he kind of flubbed up and. Who was it? Talked about someone's wife. I don't know, the guy from Australia, I think it was. I'm not sure, but he accidentally said the F word supposedly.
Yes.
Yeah. But a lot of people think he said, "I'm sorry, I wanted to."
How about if the Italian guy's looking at him, say, "He's not home. I can get away with this."
Right. Right. You wonder. With his mind, you saw old man Bush do it. Right.
Your boyfriend's drunk in the car. You want to dance?
Right.
How many times, right?
I have to believe he was trying to say something, man. But she was really uncomfortable.
Putting a smooth move.
Yeah, man.
Hey, come on,
no doubt. Hey,
what is your old man gonna know, right?
Exactly.
What's gonna hurt?
It's not like there's a camera here or anything. Lights and camera. It's not like we're on stage.
It's not like he's at the Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic. Get in the game.
That'd be a great commercial.
I'm Joe Biden. Who am I again?
That's right. Hey, AOC filing articles of impeachment against Supreme Court Justices Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito, whatever. Hey, how about this? I wanted to throw this past you. Colorado Governor Polis in Salt Lake today and tomorrow for the National Governors Association summer meeting. Polis is the vice chair of the group, but you know what? How closely will he be watching this? Because he kind of checks all the boxes.
He has been named.
Yep.
You are doing such a good job.
Well, you're doing such a great job.
Let's
you know
go
what?
get it.
I think you have a job.
You have a future.
You'll be back here tomorrow and Saturday.
Oh,
and you can pay Kelly to do it tomorrow.
I'd write him a check. Yeah.
I love it. All right, the Rockies getaway day today in Cincinnati. First pitch 11:10. They beat the Reds last night 6-5. 67 in North Glen, 68 in Lone Tree, and 70 in Denver. Pete continues in for Jeff and Billy. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast. Heat advisories are in effect as we head into tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday. Hot, sunny, mid-90s today, 60s tonight. Hot with upper 90s to near 100 for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Nothing more than isolated thunderstorms. Not as hot with a better chance of thunderstorms by Tuesday. Weather sponsored by Branch Planning. Some income annuities are paying 25 to 45% more than last year. Get a free retirement review by calling Branch Planning today at 720-651-9800. Find out more at branchplanning.com. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Thanks, fellas. Good morning. Lines are jammed on a Thursday, the 11th morning of July, 2024. And again, Bob Dylan said it best. You don't need to be a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. 97 the high, then watch out, 102, 100, and 103 degrees. Well, the topic stands for itself. What next? What happens tonight? We start with Rich. Rich, you waited. Good morning. Appreciate it, and thank you.
Yeah. Hey, Pete. How you doing?
I'm well.
Okay. Hey, another thing for you to maybe kick around on your program here. Let's just assume that Joe finally says, okay, that's it, I'm out, and he drops, okay?
Right.
Now you got all these delegates, and they're all uncommitted, right?
But now it's called, I believe the term is an open convention.
It's an open convention. And, the stories I heard about the last one, there was just buckets of cash on the floor of the convention.
Well, the last true open convention was Kennedy.
I think so, yeah.
It was in L.A. in 1960.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I'm an old guy. So anyway.
Both of us.
So, yeah, right. So anyway, the question, heck, with these days, it might cost, 10, 20 million just to get the nomination. So who's going to be pouring that kind of money in? How is that going to work? And you could go, you might not have a candidate, for crying out loud, if this thing drags out.
I love the call. The other one is, what happens to Joe's war chest? In other words, all the money. But what's happening now are these Hollywood celebrity donors, and the money's dry, and it's always about the money.
Yeah, it's always about the money. Who's going to come up with the big bucks? Heck, we've got a governor who's got a few big bucks laying around. He might decide, hey, maybe I'll buy a nomination here.
Okay.
So that just might be an interesting topic to kind of trend off on.
I like what you're saying, but I don't know if you can buy it. In other words, the groundswell, the so-called open convention. If Joe were to do that tonight, which I'm not too sure he will, but if Joe pulls the pin, what happens?
You need a majority of the delegates to get the nomination. But I think several thousand.
But remember, when LBJ did it, there'd only been one primary, and it was New Hampshire.
The primaries are basically over.
That's right.
So in other words, you don't have candidates jumping in and earning candidates through votes.
That's right.
That's right. You got to buy everyone. You got to buy every one of those delegates. It's going to be an amazing bidding contest down there. So.
It's the silence of the lambs.
Yeah. I think you'll have a lot of interest. Who knows who's going to be pouring the big money in to buy a president?
Well,
anyway, I just thought that might be an interesting topic for you.
Smart call to
cover. All right.
Thanks,
have a good one.
Thank you, man. You too. All right. With the line open, we go to Greg. Greg, you're on a radio show. Thank you, and good morning.
Morning, Pete. How you doing,
brother? I'm good.
Hey, I'm going to throw a name at you. I don't believe it's going to be this person, but he has shown an interest in politics and is a non-politician. How about Matthew McConaughey, the actor?
Yeah, sure, of course. Yeah.
He kind of looked at challenging Governor Abbott down in Texas, and I never really did.
Yeah.
But he's got the inside with the Hollywood folks.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't think he's going to be the one, but you wanted somebody outside of politics, like a Trump.
You got to bring somebody. You can't look. Gavin Newsom's not the answer to the Democrats' problem, and they can't run Kamala Harris. Although there's going to be a huge dust up when they come to her and say, "No, Kamala, he's gone. You pack your bag."
She's not going to pack. I think
there you are.
They've painted themselves in a corner. So if Biden goes on, then Trump's clearly going to win. But if Biden drops out, if they don't pick Kamala, ooh, man.
I know what you're saying, but there should
become a sacrificial lamb.
Yeah, I brought this in. I pulled this off the wire this morning. New polls show Trump leading Biden, but others are finding that Vice President Kamala Harris and, here's the whammo showstopper, candidate Hillary Clinton both have better shots at beating Donald Trump than Joe Biden.
Wow, Hillary. Wow.
No, I know. Wow. That really is Lady Macbeth.
Wow. Yeah.
Hillary Clinton.
I don't even know what to say about that. It just blows my mind to even think that she would come back. And Have you seen Bill Clinton lately?
No,
Oh, my God.
they got him. I think he's got the stuff too.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, I don't see how they can pull this out without, I kind of believe that theory that says that at this point, the Democrats are probably going to say, all right, let's get Biden off the ticket so that the down ballots don't get pounded on.
Yeah.
Keep Kamala, slide her in. If she loses, fine. But if we can keep the House or the Senate or, whatever, and then just create 4 years of living hell for Trump and just challenge everything that he does.
It could be.
And I mean, hell, they probably got impeachment articles written up for him already.
Very good. Wonderful call, man. There's a bunch of them in a row that are so good. All right, so we go to Jay in Castle Rock, Colorado. You're on the morning show, man. Thank you.
Good morning, Peter. How are you?
Good, man.
Good. Funny show. Good callers.
Thank
Two funny things I want to talk about, Joe, just for a second. One, I'm driving up Santa Fe from Evans. And ironically enough, Hell's Angels on a Sporty passes me going 90 like he stole it. 24 years old. And I know the guy. He's going to work. And I'm like, wow, I'm back in Southern California again, where I grew up. The one other thing, Joe, I think he gets to keep the money if he doesn't delegate.
That used to be.
Is that true? Okay.
I think that used to be, but now it used to be those guys would keep their war chest when they bailed and they kept the money.
Right.
I think that's now changed. I think that's changed, but don't hold me to it. Yeah. But what do you expect to see or hear tonight?
Well, I think his wife has pretty much got the hand up the back. People don't probably remember Charlie McCarthy, the puppet,
Edgar Bergen.
I do.
Yeah.
I saw him in person at the Sands Hotel in Las Vegas.
Wow.
So listen to this. And Frank Sinatra was there. I saw him, personally with my eyes. He was just walking around. The thing about Jill, she really likes that job she has.
Oh.
I really think so.
Oh.
Don't you?
Oh, is there any question? I mean,
I would.
I think she signed on early back when she was perhaps still married. There's her former husband, the former Mr. Jill, and he's got a story to tell that he tells. And, but he who was without sin, but they're who they are.
I've never stole another man's wife. And that man talked about what happened with Jill, and Jill took off with Joe Biden, kind of like you behind my speedboat, pulling on the ropes, just hauling buns, because she was headed for fame, and by God, she got it.
Yeah, well,
she got it.
And that's the notion of so many people that quest. My mentor, Bob Lee, who I was talking about yesterday at lunch, and I've told the story, Bob, who mentored me through some pretty interesting times, he said, you're going to meet a kind of a guy that when they go to the refrigerator to get a beer, they open up the door, the light comes on, they'll do 15 minutes. And I have met dozens of them that, that either perceive themselves as stars, they ought to be a star, all the things that go with it. But no, I think that Dr. Jill, and she's waited her turn. Yeah. They were subservient to the Obamas, but now she's got this beat up old guy.
She's just got Weekend and Bernie, Flo, but he does have one sponsor that'll be with him for life, and that is Depends. They will definitely stick with him to the end.
All right, we're moving. Doink, 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 doink. Oh, we go to Francis, and then we're coming up on a turn. Hey, Francis, thanks. You're on the show. Good morning.
Hey, Peter. Hey, I'm going to make a fumbling football metaphor for what tonight is, and that is a pun intended. But I think that when they trotted Joe out to the Waffle House right after the debate, everybody saw that it was just, you had to cauterize this problem. And I think that was a first down Hail Mary.
Okay.
I think Friday's interview with Stephanopoulos was a second down Hail Mary.
Agreed. That's good. Yeah.
And I think tonight is the third down Hail Mary. And I guess that means all we got is one more Hail Mary left. The problem is I don't think Joe views it that way. I mean, I don't think Joe knows quite what day it is.
Why? This is again another smart call. Why is Joe they call, when you're a fighter, you take a fight. A matchmaker comes, a promoter comes, and the purse is up and the money's up, and it's up to you to take the fight. Why is Joe taking? I mean, I have my own answer, but why is Joe taking the fight?
I guess I think that he was partly talked into it because people understood the problems that we're in, or that the Dems are in. And I think that, so they kind of talked him into doing this to show what a mess things are. And to kind of further this conversation, obviously on the inside, they knew this wasn't going to be Joe goes peacefully into that, good night.
Into that good night.
It's going to take a lot of cajoling and pushing and things like that. And I think that's partly why that happened.
God, I love your call. I still come back to the trickster when it was showtime for Richard Nixon, and being a Nixon geek, and those final days with Nixon, they were a nightmare.
A mess.
They were a total nightmare. And you wonder if you compare and contrast White House's Joe and what happened with Nixon, but Nixon literally, and Nixon's lights are on. I mean, there's no question. Nixon's not Joe Biden. He's not slipped away. He's Nixon, and he's in a fine feather. He's not going anywhere. And as the historians have written, Pat is drinking, and he's drinking, and Kissinger, and all the stuff that's swirling around them, and the war is what it's doing, and the madness in the streets is happening, and he still locks himself in. He would, in July, Nixon would turn the air conditioner up as high as it could go. Then he would build fires in the fireplace. And he would wear I'm serious. He would wear a sweater, and he loved to. He had those yellow legal tablets. I like them, and he would put his feet up, and he would write page after page after page of sort of what is to be done. And then he got into this really crazy jag where he decided he was going to draw a plan for the Redskins to an offensive play for the Redskins. No, I'm serious. And they took it to the Redskins. I mean, remember when he goes down to all the protesters are down, I guess, in the Lincoln Memorial. He goes down there in the middle of the night, and he's going to read.
He's asking them how.
He's going to reason. He's going to reason with them. And he's probably had a couple of drinks, and he wants to talk about college football.
Yeah, didn't he? He was asking some UT students how Texas was going to do this year, or something like that.
He starts talking about football. Yeah, he's so disconnected. And this is Richard Nixon, who Henry Kissinger's great line. He would have been wonderful if somebody would have loved him.
Yeah, nobody ever did. That's true.
And nobody ever did. And in the end, he didn't think he did anything wrong.
No. Yeah. Well, yeah. I think you can fool yourself into anything. But you know what they call that? He's like you say, middle of July, he's burning fire in the fireplace,
fireplaces,
wearing a sweater. You know what they call that type of activity is cocooning. You're basically you're trying to find an environment that you're comfortable in, just to live to kind of disengage.
Even his great triumph, he gets the POWs home, and he throws a huge party for the POWs. He goes off by himself. He goes into the study. He puts his feet up. He gets out his legal tablets, and he starts to write. And the party with all of those men who had been through so much was going on the White House lawn. He secluded himself from it. He was never a comfortable person in a crowd of anything. He never was. Ever. But he's driven. He's so driven. I mean, look.
What's not going to happen tonight, Peter? I just wanted, because it dawned on me that I think this is I don't think there's much of a chance that Joe Biden throws in the towel tonight.
No.
I think it's partly. I think I'm going to paint a broad brush here, but he's a baby boomer of the first of the first order. And baby boomers, if they have a defining characteristic, it's not knowing when to say when. They kind of have this self-importance problem, and that's true. I mean, he's not going to throw it in.
But he's got so many of his own team against him now, and that's when the coach gets. I don't know, but we'll play those cuts again of Nixon, and I mean, I've been so driven back to the Nixon books and rethinking Nixon, and not knowing. I mean, there had to be great moments of madness. I think those final 30 days in the Trump Oval Office when he's not going to give it up, but Nixon, it's far crazier with Nixon, because Nixon's going to be forced to resign.
Yeah.
And
they're going to impeach us.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they're coming. and I think the Trump stuff was probably mad enough. But what it must be like now, what it must be like now with
I have a feeling I have a feeling it's less madness and more sadness is what I honestly think it is. I think that just given the nature of the problem, we have a obviously infirm president and a wife who's kind of propped him up and forcing it forward. And so I think that everybody around this person, they all probably respected him and liked him, but they can't, it's hard to come to terms with, it really is.
The staff knew how sick FDR was. We've talked about Woodrow Wilson and Edith and Colonel House. This is someplace in the middle of all of that. I got a break.
Yeah, you're right. You're
Thank
right.
Francis.
Yep.
Wonderful. All right.
Later, Pete.
Thank you, sir. 303-696-1971. Well, they've moved it up, or they moved it out. It was going to be 3:30 this afternoon, our time, that we would see Joe Biden give his first open press conference in forever. That's following that debate disaster against Donald Trump. And then I watched that step on all of us thing. And then, of course, his NATO speech. And the eyes of the world are going to be on all of this. There, of course, the NATO countries are here. And he's trying to calm everybody down in his party. I think it's too late. I mean, I think everyone has now seen him up close and personal. And when you start to see the people urging him to go, Joe, you got to go. Joe, you got to go. And now the big money guys, the donors for next month's Democratic National Convention, they've scrapped it. They've come out and said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not batting up. Clooney and these guys, it's the tip of the spear. And people are saying things behind his back, in front of his back. And again, one of the most brilliant moments right now is Donald Trump is just quiet. And for 2 weeks now, it's very uncharacteristic, but the Republican convention begins in a couple of days. And he's laid out. So what do you think happens tonight? What do you think the aftermath will be? And can Joe survive? I think not. But again, 303-696-1971. We're at that moment again where lines are wide open. We'll play some of that Nixon stuff. It was chilling because, I remember watching it. And now I figured he was lying, but now we know he was. And you watch that speech or listen to that speech, and the American people need to know whether or not he said, I've never obstructed justice. The entire operation was obstruction of justice, laundering money, paying people off, hush money. That's where that term comes from, hush money. Came from the boys, came from Richard Nixon and company. All right. 97 the high, 102, 100, 103. It's going to be hot. 710 KNUS. I'm Peter Boyles. This is Denver's talk station.
At this hour in the UK, I'm John Beaver, and here are the top stories we're following. Alec Baldwin's trial on involuntary manslaughter charges continues today at a district court in Santa Fe, New Mexico. The actor was holding the prop gun loaded with a real bullet that killed cinematographer Helena Hutchins on the set of the movie Rust in 2021. Ira Spitzer reports.
On the first day of testimony, the 12 jurors heard New Mexico's prosecutor accuse Alec Baldwin of what she described as playing make-believe with a real live gun in the workplace. Attorneys for the actor, known for his work on the show 30 Rock and other roles, countered that the blame rested with the crew members responsible for firearm safety on the set for allowing a real bullet to be loaded into a prop gun. The film's armorer was convicted of the same involuntary manslaughter charges earlier this year. Baldwin, who has pleaded not guilty, faces up to 18 months in prison if convicted.
A new policy is being examined that would further limit the number of tourists to the Alaskan capital. Last year, Juneau imposed a cap of 5 cruise ships per day to try and minimise the impact of tourists on the local area. The new proposal being put forward is an outright ban on cruise ships on Saturdays. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm John Beaver in the...
Have we been here before? Well, perhaps. It's Thursday, the 11th morning, July 2024. They just moved it to 4:30 Mountain Time. The President of the United States, Joe Biden, gives his first press conference after that disaster against Donald Trump, the Step on All of Us interview, all of the different things he's been doing. And now what? The eyes of the world will be on this 81-year-old at the he's been with the NATO summits. He's trying to calm growing calls from within his own party to step out, to step away, to step down. And tonight is the night we were talking about other moments in time, other presidents, and I've been drawn to, I don't know why things are doing this, to what we do for a living, for the great moments in the media. And there have been some great moments, and there's been some really awful moments. But one of the two, and I come back with Winston Churchill always. You know, you can't go wrong with Winston Churchill. But Churchill's speech, and I think it hit me in the back of the head last night. This is the end of the beginning. And so this is 1941. America's not in the war. Lend-Lease is underway. They've met off the coast of Newfoundland, FDR and Winston Churchill, and they've turned the tide against the Nazis coming to invade the island. And he gives this speech.
This is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end. But it is perhaps the end of the beginning.
How good's that? Are we at the end of the beginning? And I think we are. We have time to take a call. Do you want to? I know we have time to take a call. We go to Dave. Dave, thanks, man. You waited. Good morning. You're on the show.
Yeah, Peter, what I see parallels, I don't know how many of your listeners have been through this, but family members with dementia, you watch them become increasingly frail, and then they lose the ability to self-assess. Now, you might have Nixon had faulty self-assessment, but he had self-assessment.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And what we're seeing now is he has the inability to look at where he's been or where he's going, and we could stop this in a second if he would have himself evaluated and let us know the outcome.
And everything you say is true. If it were a family member, my grandma went through it. And it was, I was still a boy, and I didn't realize. And you know what? The other part of it, Dave, is I don't know how many people really knew what that was. And they used to call it old timers. And in fairness to, it was like it is in terms of other families. It's tough. But how far down the ladder do you think Joe is?
Well, I think this is all going to fail on him, and he's going to end up very bitter. But I think when I look at my father when he went through this, we're approaching the cliff.
Oh yeah.
They stumble. For a long time, my father could fool anybody, and then all of a sudden it was over.
Yeah. Oh, listen. My grandma was a big influence on me when I was a little boy. She taught me to read. And I have often said I can't remember not being able to read, but they all lived in a rental, you know how that drill was, and she would sit in this big chair and have the morning newspaper, and I remember being able to read that cartoon Nancy. Now, how bad is Nancy? But I remember. Yeah, but you read a little kid, you could read. I read Nancy and all that different kind of stuff. And so because of my grandma, because of Rachel, I modestly, he says to this day, I'm a reader, but she slipped into madness. And
right. Well, again, ask your listeners. The parallels are frightening, and it will lead to an end.
Yeah, I mean, I not that I did it. Kelly Michaels did it. That moment where Nixon is telling the American, and I remember it. And Nixon's telling the American people he wasn't involved in the cover-up. He never obstructed justice. They're total lies. Of course he did.
Right.
But
they were reasoned lies, and right now I don't see any reasoning.
Well, not only that, if you don't think that Joe Biden couldn't carry Richard Nixon's jock out on the field right now.
Right. Well, he's he's not a thinking man right now.
He's not.
And like I say, it's just the throes of dementia, and I'm sorry to see it, but it's a
No,
truth.
but again, another great call, Dave. You're right, and it's Nixon. If all the biographers are correct, and I assume they are, they all pretty much tell the same story. He's cloistered unto himself. I don't think Joe is cloistered unto himself. I think Joe has Dr. Jill and Hunter and, God only knows who whispering in his ear. And the only last two people that are left are the Nixon daughters and their husbands. And even their husbands aren't buying in. And, by this time, Kissinger knows, Pat knows, the world pretty much knows. And he still won't give it up.
Yeah, but he wasn't delusional about
No, not at all. He was Nixon.
Yeah.
The answer was.
Thanks for your time, Pete. I got to go.
Hi, Bubba. Okay, we'll break and then we'll play that speech, the Nixon speech. What do you expect tonight? Now it's at 4:30. Is this the canary in the mine shaft? We were mentioning the old coal miners would take a canary down in the coal mine, take a couple canaries down in the coal mine with them, and mine gas that was all over coal mines, it killed the canaries first. And they would take the canaries into the coal mine, and they're digging coal. And if they looked at the cage and the canary was dead, we're gone, get out of here. And that was the way that they could fathom their health. Joe Biden, the canary in the mine shaft. Stay here, 710 KNUS. Peter Boyles lucky enough to sit in all of this week, and I can't think of a more powerful week for talk radio and for politics than then be able to host this show now and tomorrow and, of course, on Saturday. 303-696-1971. Tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. At 6 a.m., we'll be right back at him again. But it is amazing what tonight may bring us, or this afternoon, when Joe Biden faces our country, you and I, giving his first press conference post the debate disaster with Donald Trump, the step on all of us, and then that NATO speech, and he just keeps slipping further into darkness. And last night, show prepping and thinking about speeches, in August of 72, Richard Nixon gave a speech in which he swore that none of the White House staff was involved in break-ins, and most voters believed him. And remember, Richard Nixon in 72 was reelected in a landslide. And most people, here we are back to what people believe. And most American voters believed that Nixon was not involved. So let me set this one thing up, and then we'll click it, Kelly. But it later comes to light that Nixon was not being truthful. A few days after the break-in, for instance. Oh, okay. Why don't we just play, and we'll come back on the other side and pick it up.
And I want to say this to the television audience. I made my mistakes, but in all of my years of public life, I have never profited from public service. I've earned every cent. And in all of my years of public life, I have never obstructed justice. And I think, too, that I can say that in my years of public life, that I welcome this kind of examination, because people have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.
Well,
President? Yes, sir.
Few days after the break-in, for instance, Richard Nixon arranged to provide hundreds of thousands of dollars in hush money to the burglars. And that's the beginning. We return, 710 KNUS. I'm Peter Boyles. It's coming up on 9 o'clock. We're right back. Good morning, everyone. 710 KNUS Denver Stock Station on a Thursday, July the 11th. It's 9 a.m., and the guys are back on Monday. I am lucky enough to be able to sit in this chair tomorrow and Saturday as well in the aftermath of what's going to take place this afternoon as the POTUS faces the American people and tries to convince them that he's not slipped into dementia. We now know this report is the BO report. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, from his
the
BO report. Came up with that.
Yeah, man.
Hey, how much do you remember of Nixon and the Watergate scandal, Nixon's resignation, and all of that?
I was really young, but I watched a lot of it. All the news stories later and whatever, and listened to my parents talk about it, and fascinating. But once again, a couple days ago, we talked about it because, what do we really know? What really happened? I mean, a lot what occurred, but as you watched it, as a little kid, I think I was 6 when that press conference happened. Yeah, I think it was 6.
He gave speeches, and that's why we're doing this comparison analysis. And one thing is for sure, Richard Nixon, with all of his paranoia and all of his being an introvert and really being a sick coyote, was smart.
Oh man, he was really smart. He may have been the smartest president ever, possibly.
I'll tell you what, it has to be in the top 5 or 7 or whatever the number is. But
yeah,
it is interesting. We've been playing his speech and Winston Churchill stuff and Kelly Michaels on the job, but I'm back rereading stuff, but Nixon gives this speech and he swears that his White House staff was not involved in the break-in. This is the one we're going to hear. And most voters believed him. In November of 72, he was reelected in a landslide victory. And then when he talks in the speech, we'll play it, Kelly will play it, and he talks about they did not obstruct justice, but it comes to light in, like I said, watching these investigators, Nixon was the best not being truthful. A few days after the break-in, he arranged to provide thousands of dollars in hush money to the burglars. And then they hatched plans to instruct the CIA to impede the FBI. I mean, I'm a geek about this stuff. But then the conspirators were indicted on charges and the urging of Nixon's age, and they pled guilty, and the rest goes on to history. But this was Nixon. And remember, it's June of 72 where the break-in into the Democratic National Headquarters, and it reveals this multiple abuses of power by Nixon. So before we begin the Olson report, this is Richard Nixon before he is reelected, before he's reelected.
And I want to say this to the television audience. I made my mistakes, but in all of my years of public life, I have never profited from public service. I've earned every cent. And in all of my years of public life, I have never obstructed justice. And I think, too, that I can say that in my years of public life, that I welcome this kind of examination, because people have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.
Anyone re-election. Yeah.
Do you think the American people or the voters, the Republicans, also felt at the time? Do you think that they felt like he was just set up?
Well, absolutely. They still do.
That's how but that's how they felt at the time, correct?
Yeah. And he, it was just this great sadness looking back on it because of how many more young men are going to die and how many Southeast Asians are going to die and how the country gets torn apart because of the point I guess I'm trying to make is it's one man. And so one man is going to appear before our country tonight or this afternoon. One man. And, historians call these pressure cooker moments. Richard, we know, look, Lyndon Johnson lied, Richard Nixon lied, the Bush-Cheney team lied. Why am I supposed to believe now? Here comes the truth.
You're gonna remember where you were on this day.
Oh yeah,
this is one of those days.
Yeah. What's your plan? What's your plan?
I don't know. I think I've got to. I think I'm gonna watch it with the family.
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah, I hope with the kid. Well, at least one of my sons.
Yeah.
I think we'll watch it. And I mean, it's a historic moment.
Oh,
it really is.
We'll
no doubt.
Be out of the box tomorrow.
Lemonade
morning.
and Diet Dr. Pepper.
Put your feet up and
shade trees.
Give each other the elbow when he says something.
That's right, man. It's gonna be a great day, and it'll be a better tomorrow morning with you.
At 6 a.m., man, we'll come out of the box. But
yeah, I can't wait.
And Joe, man, and
he's not gonna survive. There's no way. No way.
Boy, there are guys. I'm reading guys on the iNet this morning who say there's no question Joe's running. There are all these Democratic stalwarts. Stay with Joe. Stick with Joe.
Wow.
I mean, Trump showed you what he's capable of doing to Joe.
Right. Exactly.
Man,
and it gets worse with Kamala.
Oh, but back to the trickster.
Mm-hmm.
Nixon was light years brighter than all of them.
My goodness.
And
that dude was smart, man. Golly.
Remember, the grand jury gets him, and then the Supreme Court gets him.
Yep.
And in the end, he resigns, and he flees into. We were talking about Gordon Liddy, and both Kelly and I had Gordon Liddy experiences.
Yeah, that was great.
Oh, he's Gordon Liddy. But
that's awesome.
Oh yeah, Gordon Liddy was tough.
Yeah, he was.
But so anyhow, so there we are, and
all right.
People got convicted for all of this stuff, but it was that speech in that moment that everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, a large percentage of the country tuned in to see Nixon say, I didn't do this.
I didn't do it.
And he
They
did.
just need to hear it.
And he did.
Just like Clinton. Need to hear him say I didn't do it.
What depends on what is.
Yeah, right.
Hey,
I did not slay.
Yeah.
I did not. Now I can't even remember.
Yeah, that young kid's about 2 years older than his daughter,
Oh my
That's pretty
goodness,
classy.
that dude.
Way to go, Bill.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Wow. Speaking of,
here we go.
All right. 76 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the upper 90s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story
with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look,
all right, depending on what happens today at 4:30, could Colorado Governor Polis be in the mix for the Democrats? Polis in Salt Lake today, and tomorrow for the National Governors Association summer meeting, Matthew McConaughey is also there to speak. How closely will all of them be watching Biden this afternoon? Axios reporting that Chucky Schumer is open to dumping Biden. George Clooney, he spoke to Obama on Wednesday and then took out an op-ed saying that, hey, he loves Joe, but we need a new nominee. And no shocker, Van Jones says the Democrats will run Kamala one way or another.
What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been.
And nothing strikes fear in our enemies, like or Iran, for example, more than a leader like Harris.
And what's the message to Iran?
Don't.
As President Biden said, just don't.
Exactly. One word. Pretty straightforward.
And then they did. So Biden is going to chat with President Zelensky today at the NATO summit as it comes to an end. Looked like he was trying to pick up or hitting on Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni last night. Speaking of sex, congressional hearing, Ben Shapiro just wrecks Eric Swalwell, who slept with a Chinese spy and somehow still has his job. He was trying to make Shapiro look like a bigot. Did not work.
And just because we found some receipts, you did say, I think homosexual activity is a sin.
Yes, I'm a religious Jew.
Sure,
That's true.
there's a genetic component.
You found me out.
Orientation. But the view of all religious people I know has always been that sexual behavior is something that is up to you. And you said, I may have a desire to sleep with many women, but I do not.
I agree with me. Yes, that's true.
Congratulations on your...
Get that big stuff out of here!
Gentleman's time has expired, and I remind him of the first rule of holes. When you're in one, stop digging.
Well, the heat is on tomorrow and throughout the weekend. Expect 100-degree temperatures up and down the Front Range.
My plan is probably not to go hiking those days and to let that pass by.
Take precautions and drink a lot of water. One person shot on 29th and Larimer last night in the River North Art District. The victim sent to the hospital, and no word on the condition of the victim, and the investigation is underway. Ammo vending machines are starting to pop up across the country. Texas-based American Rounds has already installed at least one in their home state. Add that to several in Oklahoma and Alabama. Florida and Colorado could also see them installed in the coming weeks. Buyers must be at least 21 and show ID, so AI can check for a facial match. Flavor Flav is heading to Paris as the U.S. water polo team needs him as their hype man. He jumped in a California practice pool with the U.S. women's water polo team this week, wearing a uniform bearing the number 24 for the 2024 Olympics.
These girls are living proof that as long as you don't give up, you can accomplish your goals and you can see your dreams come true.
So he agreed to sponsor them for the next 5 years. Nice gesture. After one of their players posted on Instagram that the team needs support, they hope to snag a fourth gold medal. He's hoping the men's team can do it too, so he's helping them as well. The Rockies getaway day today in Cincinnati. First pitch at 11:10. They beat the Reds last night 6-5. It's 71 in Castle Rock, 72 in Louisville, and 76 in Denver. Peter continues in for Jeff and Bill as we get ready for the big press conference coming up this afternoon at 4:30.
He's supposed to be having a press conference tomorrow?
That's right. That's when he's making his announcement.
It's the most depressing headline of the week.
Once again today at 4:30, Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast. Heat advisories are in effect as we head into tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday. Hot, sunny, mid-90s today, 60s tonight. Hot with upper 90s to near 100 for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Nothing more than isolated thunderstorms. Not as hot with a better chance of thunderstorms by Tuesday. Weather sponsored by Branch Planning. Some income annuities are paying 25 to 45% more than last year. Get a free retirement review by calling Branch Planning today at 720-651-9800. Find out more at branchplanning.com. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Thanks, boys. They're back on Monday. Thursday morning, I'm Peter Boyles, 710 KNUS. 97 the high, 102, 103, and the beat goes on. We have two lines open, 303-696. It is open lines, 303-696-1971, the end of the beginning tonight. And it's been moved to from a 3:30 start here to a 4:30 start. This is Joe Biden. He's got hours really left between now and then to save his second term. Been thinking about this, and I know many of you have as well. And all of the so-called power brokers say, well, it's up to him to decide whether or not he's going to run. I'm not so sure at this point, but handing over the keys to the White House, and he has to make a decision. His talk tonight, and again, how's he going to handle it? Is he going to handle occasionally? Is he going to take a press call, or is he going to take all the calls? It'd be certainly worthwhile watching. We begin with Steve on line one. Steve, you waited. Good morning, and thank you.
Hi, Peter.
Hey.
I've got a nice little Nixon story. I was living in D.C. and going to school in the early 80s, and Nixon resigned in 74, and he came back to D.C., and you know how hard the Post was on, during Watergate.
Oh, indeed.
And when he came back, the Post ran this. I remember it like it's yesterday. And that's during the time when Reagan was in, and, Reagan got off to kind of a bumpy start, 82, 83. And then the headline on the Post, he went over there and he did this huge, just discussion about global affairs and everything. And the headline was, with this president, intellect was never an issue.
Well, that's true.
And, after those after years, his later years, he was, his writings about global affairs,
oh, man.
He was much more palatable as a human being. It was almost a different person.
He's Richard Nixon may be the most complex man to ever hold the office. I say maybe. I think some of these guys are so, I think, like, for instance, Herbert Walker Bush is he's just a toad. He's not capable. Reagan, on the other hand, was one of those just amazing characters that held the job. And I don't think anybody said, boy, Dutch Reagan, what an IQ. But he got it. And I love what you said about Nixon, because if there's a new Nixon book, I go and get it. Why I'm drawn to Nixon, I can't tell you. But in the end, he's by himself.
From 1950, well, even before, but starting in 52 when he ran with Eisenhower, he was a major factor in national affairs.
Absolutely.
Literally until his death.
No, absolutely. He, so many other things he probably could have or would have done, but for whatever reasons, he's drawn into politics. And, he comes home from the Navy, finishes law school, moves to California, and he, in essence, answers an ad. They want to find a young veteran Republican, fill in the blank, to run for office in Southern California. And, Nixon, not figuratively, but literally, not figuratively, answers an ad. And he has the belly for the fight.
He came from absolute, almost dirt poor, he graduated third in his law school class at Duke. The big firms wouldn't take him.
Nope.
He moved out to California.
Yep.
There's always been a chip on the shoulder with him. He was always rejected. And, after he lost, I don't know when he moved up to New Jersey, I think that's after he lost the California race in 62.
Yes.
They treated him badly up there and everything. And, that comeback that he had between 64 and 68, Pat Buchanan talked about it at the Lincoln Museum. The Lincoln Institute. He campaigned all over the United States.
Paid off.
For Republican candidates.
Right. That's right. Hey, but here was the thing about Nixon. And like I said, I'm not name dropping. I really became pretty good pals with Pat Buchanan. And when we would talk, we talked principally about Nixon, who he always called the old man. He called Nixon the old man. And he knew Jeb Stuart Magruder. He knew Eagle Crow. He knew those people. And it wasn't like, me and you reading about them. He knew them. And there was just this thing about Nixon that, that both of us are obviously talking about. He was such a loner, and he was paranoid. And when he trounces his opponent, he landslides the 72. He comes up with an enemies list. Why, Steve, would you do that? You've won. You've got everything that you ever wanted. You're president, you're president of the United States. You've won. What does he do? Compiles an enemies list.
And if you look at modern Republican presidents, he probably had the best civil rights record.
Oh,
I know it's hard to believe.
No, it's true.
He passed. So it's almost like his personal self got in the way of his professional self.
But he grew
his
up,
intellect and his understanding of the world.
Yeah, he grew up with this half nuts father who really was a tap out. He tapped out, like Nixon said. I think they had an orange grove, and the old man loses it, and that's really the beginning of the building boom, and the land was worth. And then they had a store, and he had two brothers die. I believe both of his brothers died, and his mother, her name was Hannah, and she was a Quaker, and she went off with the boys to, in essence, help them die. And he's always the outsider. He wants to join this elite club at Whittier High School, and they won't have him. So he starts his own club, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And, there's part of you that it just feels so bad for him. And he meets Pat Nixon, he meets Thelma Ryan. And do you ever hear that story? He drives her on her dates.
No, I haven't heard that.
She's got a date with a guy, and Nixon drives her to the date. I mean,
one thing after another. So he's on the ticket with he's going to be on the ticket with Eisenhower. Right. They say he's a crook. He goes on. He gives that checker speech.
The checker speech.
It's just one. It's just one thing. Then he loses to Nixon. Then he goes and loses to Pat Brown.
Yep.
He's going to be done. We'll never hear from him again. Yep. Then he comes back all the way 68, huge, 72, huge, and then he tanks himself.
But that was always the part what I would say to Buchanan. Big deal, I would say to Buchanan. But I'd say, here he is. He has it all. He's won. Why must you compile an enemies list? Why much? And it goes back to that Nixon using politics to get even. And it wasn't just with Democrats. I mean, it was with, as you point out, it was newspaper people, television people, people in Hollywood, bankers and others. And his anti-Semitism would sneak through, his racial tendencies would really come through, and these moments of fits, if you would, of his anger, and
Helen Douglas, the Helen Douglas campaign, where he paints her as a communist,
pink lady
for the Senate, Whitaker Chambers. It just goes on and on.
But he said she was the pink lady, clear through to her pink underwear, which was very daring to say in Southern Cal when he ran against Helen Gahagan Douglas, the pink lady. But when it came to Whitaker Chambers, he was right. I mean, he was right on Whitaker Chambers and, what they did in the Punkin Papers.
Yes,
and
right.
Yeah, he was they had him, with Alger Hiss. And Hiss talked on his nose to Nixon. And if you see that stuff, and he said, you went to Whittier, didn't you? Like he puts Nixon down, and then and Nixon and Jack Kennedy are kind of friends. But,
exactly.
And
apparent, there was a bond, and Goldwater was part of that. But these guys that went served together in World War II.
That's right.
I don't know how accurate this is, but that Jack Jack's dad maybe gave Nixon money.
He did money. He did give him money
yes. in Douglas campaign.
Yes, he did. Jack went to his dad, the ambassador. Everybody called him the ambassador, and he said, "Please give money to this young congressman in California, Richard Nixon." Joe Kennedy funded, or not fully funded, but partially funded Nixon's run. And then they come across Joe McCarthy. And Joe McCarthy dates one of the Kennedy daughters. I can't remember which one. He dates her. And Bobby Kennedy becomes a witch hunter for Joe McCarthy in UAC. And who's he come up against? Richard Nixon. Because remember, Richard Nixon's on UAC. He's on the House On-American Activities. And they end up hating each other. Bobby Kennedy's a heel. I mean, nobody liked Bobby Kennedy, and Bobby Kennedy is just a creep as a person. But there's Nixon. And it's like, and he's looking for a father figure with Eisenhower. And Ike just won't give it to him. He just won't let him have it. So, Ike's, there's another guy that you think to yourself, where are those men now? And could they survive now?
There was they did cross the aisle. They did know each other.
Oh,
they
yeah.
had, the war gave them some substance.
Yes.
And now we've got just chaos.
And I mean, the press corps was never going to give up FDR and his girlfriend. It wasn't going to happen. And
same with Kennedy. Same with Arnold Palmer.
Yes.
I'm serious.
No, they knew. I mean, the press corps, they traveled in trains, and FDR had a place in Warm Springs that they built for polio kids, and he would go there. That was his retreat. And his girlfriend, who was his longtime girlfriend, would meet him. And there are some historians that believe that he was having his portrait painted when he died. He had a massive stroke and died. There are people who believe, and do with that as you may, that he died in her arms, that he keeled over into her arms. And the press corps would go on their train, and they would park on the spur and drink booze and play poker. And FDR visited his paramour. And they knew damn well what he was doing. The war was on. It was far more important because these were men who, quote, loved their country more than what becomes sensational journalism. And it's whether she was at best she was in the house when he died. There are people that believe that he died in her arms. American people never knew that.
If you kind of get into Nixon and start studying him, it's just unlimited. And I get up way early and work.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'll just go play different YouTubes about him.
Yeah.
Different Buchanan speeches about him, different talks he's given.
Yeah.
He's just a fascinating, endless character. And go ahead.
Well, Halderman and Erickman, and I had a chance to interview both of them by phone. And you know what? They never talked to each other again either.
No kidding. I didn't know that.
They never talked to each other again. And Nixon, and at the worst of the worst, and here's this brilliantly flawed man that gets the job. And even in achieving the presidency, which is the ultimate for a politician, he begins to form his enemies list. Steve, not celebrating, not enjoying the moment, the room at the top. He begins to see the people and the names of the people he's going to destroy. Wow.
He had a very good relationship with John Kennedy, terrible with Robert.
Oh, yeah.
And he had this phobia about Ted. He's just, so thanks for the time.
No, but his fear, the final one was his fear. And Nixon really suffered emotionally, was in depression, fought everything off anxiety, and he didn't see a shrink, but he went to see a doctor about his maladies. Bobby Kennedy found out about it. So when it got down to that close outcome of that election, particularly Cook County, and Nixon, people always wonder, well, Nixon took the high ground and didn't make a stink. The most recent historians say Bobby Kennedy went to him and said, go ahead. I'll blow the whistle when you seeing a shrink. And boy, seeing a shrink in 1960 was, no one did that, especially a high-ranking politico would admit. It's like Tony Soprano, finding out he was seeing Dr. Malfi. Only it was like 1,000,000 times worse. And Bobby Kennedy said to him, go ahead. And I'll have that shrink story out there so quick. And with that, Nixon backed away. True story, or at least historians say it. So, shows you who Bobby really was, because remember, Bobby's campaign manager for his brother. He's Jack's campaign manager.
Yep.
And he's a heel. He's a total heel.
Nixon lost that campaign, and he certified the election as vice president.
Oh, he did.
Yep.
And he did.
I'll let you go.
All right, man. Steve, what do you do for real?
I'm a lawyer.
Well, you're beyond a lawyer. Anybody loves Nixon. Like, we can talk for hours. Let's talk about. And Bonnewell's a Nixon guy. We talk about Nixon a lot too. And I don't know if any of these guys, like I'm saying tonight, let me one more time. What do you expect tonight? What do you expect to hear or see?
Well, it's going to be, I don't think he's going to resign tonight. I think if the Democrat, I'm a Democrat, if we get past this, I do think even, Vice President Harris or whatever, I think we'll give Trump all he wants, because I think he's a very flawed candidate. But the whole country's going to be watching. Oh. The other thing is, Peter, this is a very long day today for him too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's what I get tired at that hour.
I get tired now.
But it's a heck of a risk, isn't it?
It's a big one. But he has to.
I just don't see how he can survive over time.
He doesn't have a choice.
Yeah.
There's no choice. Thanks, brother, man. Great call. Thank you. All right, we return 303-696-1971. Given Joe Biden, he's got hours left to save his second term.
At this hour in the UK, I'm John Beaver, and here are the top stories we're following. There are calls for greater regulation of the chemicals used to manufacture synthetic drugs, such as methamphetamine and fentanyl. Mexican Navy officials running the country's biggest port are warning of a rising amount of dual-use chemicals coming into the country, much of it from China. They can be used legally in everything from the food to perfume industries, but are also a key component in the production of some narcotics. Most of the fentanyl that ends up on American streets is made in Mexico. The United States has agreed to forgive a $35 million debt with Indonesia in return for the preservation of coral reefs. The money will fund protection and conservation work in areas of the so-called Coral Triangle near Indonesia, which is thought to be one of the most biodiverse areas of ocean in the world. It's the fourth debt for nature swap between the two countries. A new policy is being examined that would further limit the number of tourists to the Alaskan capital. Last year, Juneau imposed a cap of 5 cruise ships per day to try and minimise the impact of tourists on the local area. The new proposal being put forward is an outright ban on cruise ships on Saturdays. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm John Beaver.
Peter Boyles on the air everywhere on a Thursday, July the 11th, 2024. You can jump the show 303-696-1971. So every word that he utters, think about what the pressure cooker that this man is going to be in this afternoon. Every word he utters, every step he takes. Joe Biden now has the eyes of the worried world on him, watching for another performance like the one that he just went through with President Trump, where they sit down with Step on All of Us, or his NATO speech. This test comes tonight, or this afternoon, rather. It goes 4:30 our time. And Biden holds a solo. He's given press conferences. I had to go back and look on the internet. The last time, this is telling, the last time Joe Biden did a presser alone was in November. That's a long time ago. This is now July. He has not held a single He's done press conferences with Ukrainian and Kenyan and Japanese leaders, but not on his own. So you think about this right now. And I was talking to Kelly Michaels during the pause. I can't thank Jeff and Billy enough for letting me, somehow this worked out. And the boys are back, and they'll be back on Monday. But I get to do 2 mornings, tomorrow morning. And it's the Democrats themselves right now are really giving Joe Biden just hours to save that second term. If I'm in the Trump corner, I want Joe to stay. I don't want Joe to go. If you look across the ring at your opponent, and that's kind of what this is, except he's stepping out there into the spotlight on his own. And in some ways, I guess it's up to him to decide. But look, the prospect of handing over the White House keys to the Trumps is an anathema to these people. And he has to make a decision. Polling forecasts for both the president and for other Democrats, those things, they rise and fall on polling data on the top of the ticket. So there's people that are so-called down ballot Democrats. They don't want this guy either. The Democrats calling on Biden to step aside so that the party can have a candidate better suited for what is truly to be. I mean, you talk about a burn down to the wire contest. It'll be against Donald Trump. So he's got a couple hours to go. What do you think they're saying to him? It's in our time. It is, let's see, it's 9:41, 10:40, it's 11:41 for those guys. He goes off at 4:30 our time. And so would it be 2:30 for them? 6:30 for, that's right, because they're behind. So it's 6:30 his time. He's got a rich, full day. Does he have a meal? I mean, for the pre-fight meal. I mean, it's any of you that ever stupid enough to climb in, that they time when you should eat. Here, eat over here. Don't do that. But pre-game stuff, they're in a locker room. Somebody's on their knee doing what? Talking to them. Or is he taking a nap right now? They said that no matter who Muhammad would fight, he had this innate ability to eat the pre-fight meal and go in and lay down on the table and go to sleep. Didn't matter who he was going to fight, from Joe Frazier to George Foreman to whomever. He had the ability to go and take a nap before the fight. And other guys like pacing. So we got one more break here, boss. One more? All right. Anybody come on in now, 303-696-1971, the end of the beginning. Here we go, everyone. It is tonight, 710 KNUS Denver's Talk Station. I get to come back here tomorrow as well as Saturday, and it ought to be a raucous morning. This has been really good talk radio. This last week has just been wonderful. Thursday morning, the 11th morning of July, 2024. I got to bail out of here. I got a really, really busy day, but boy, oh boy, where are you going to be? I mean, where are you going to sit? Where are you going to watch? I got my sort of got a tentative plan, but you want to be right in front of that tube and you want to see this. To the wall of shame, Joe's still in bed. What happens? I mean, the power of this, and I always think about what's going on actually as we speak. If Joe has what I suspect will happen is a very poor performance, and that will do nothing but pour fuel on the flames of his age and his health. And remember, when he appeared against Donald Trump, then there was no place to hide. When he appeared, and why they let him go out against Donald Trump, and again, it would be for historians and political theorists, did they stick this guy out there to get beat? Sometimes, and I don't like the term, because anybody gets in the ring, to me, has heart, but they used to call these old fighters tomato cans, or they would, trowel horses. And you have a up and coming young fighter who's like 9 or 10-0. And then you got this guy that he's 26 and 15, and he'll take the fight because he wants the money. And he's called, and I despise it, but he's called the tomato can. And they stuck this guy out there against Donald Trump. Was he the tomato can? Did they want to see, or maybe they didn't expect the Donald Trump that got in the ring, back to Buster Douglas and Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson had no more of an idea who was in waiting for him in Tokyo, and it was the one and only Buster Douglas. Douglas handed him his hat. Nobody expected it. And that's happened in prize fighting many, many, many times. People didn't think, for instance, that Gene Tunney could beat Jack Dempsey, but he did, not once, but twice. So the allies want reassurance about Biden's ability over what? Biden has blamed his debate meltdown on a bad cold and jet lag. Come on, then don't take the fight. But what I thought was interesting, and I wish it was my critique, but it wasn't, but Dr. Jill, did they take him to a pancake house or someplace they took him to, I don't know, some nice breakfast spot? And Jill, you told everybody the guy's got a cold. This kind of negates that line, that why would you take, I mean, I'd be awful mad if I was in there, shoveling pancakes and they bring in some guy that's sick. I mean, especially from these people who learned everything from COVID. So, and I'm watching Clooney and watching about there's all these fundraisers that are now not going to happen. They're not going to raise money for the guy. And Clooney said the guy he watched the other night wasn't even the Joe Biden of 2020. And Clooney said Biden would lose the presidential election. Michael Bennett said it. And if more and more Democrats start to climb on that hay wagon and start to say, you're going to lose, you're going to lose, you're going to lose, my best bet is these people live in safety. They're waiting for tonight. And if Joe has the performance that many people predict that he will, it'll be a gangbang after that. They'll be on him like a cheap suit. So Biden has insisted that he's committed. He's running in November. I watched him last night. And the Democratic Party primary votes are under his belt, and there's no forcing him out. He's going. But the people were writing editorials in newspapers telling him, you got to go. Vice President Kamala Harris, there's a wild card. And she's allegedly the front runner. She can't, I don't think. But then there's some polling data early on that she could beat Trump. Well, all we can do is see. So again, this afternoon, and I get to come back here tomorrow by hook or by crook. I'll be in this waiting for everybody to talk because it will be a showdown day for talk radio. And Joe, this is his first press conference since November. I didn't realize that since November. His whole career, everything hangs on this. And it does. And the Democrats are calling on Biden to step aside so the party has a shot at winning. And which candidate then? Tomorrow we can maybe talk about this, but which candidate is better suited for what is surely to be? I mean, you talk about a down to the wire, grueling, muddy contest against an energized Donald Trump. He is energized. So I don't know what this afternoon, this evening brings. It's going to be a major stir no matter what. And I can't see where this guy is going to make a comeback from. I watched Stephanopoulos and I watched the debate and I watched the NATO speech, and I don't know. Thank you, Kelly Michaels. Thanks, Billy. Thanks, Jeff. I'm in the wind. See you tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., 710 KNUS.